Hey, hey, hey. Welcome, everybody. I have a special guest for today, and hope everyone is ready to get started. Hey, hey. And Skinny Devil is joining me for today. Splatter may be popping on later. Uh, we will see. So, who are you, and where can I find you on the interwebs?
I'm pretty easy to find. Uh, David McLean. Skinny Devil is, I think I put that in there. Skinny Devil Music Lab is the sort of umbrella organization. I play guitar mostly. Play guitar, teach guitar, all things music. Everything from a mobile recording studio to a label we did before, and I'm founder of the SDML Academy of Guitar, founder of the Lexington Music Awards and the LexiFest concert series. Um, so mostly it just means I play guitar, teach guitar, record, perform, um, that sort of stuff. Just having fun, living the dream with the guitar in hand.
So, I shared a lot of your music on the last stream.
Oh, awesome.
Hopefully, anyone caught that. Give this guy a like and subscribe. I just shared his page on the screen. And
Cool.
you run an award show.
Yes. If anybody wants to visit it, they can hit LexingtonMusicAwards.org. I think we also own .com, so they can either one to work. But yeah, the Lexington Music Awards, and the Academy website, by the way, which is different, STMLguitar.com, and then of course SkinnyDevil.net and all the other stuff, and I'm on YouTube and everything else. But yeah, the Lexington Music Awards, we're going to be doing the 7th show in January. I don't have the actual dates into January. Yeah, we started that 7 years ago on thinking it would take. They always take time to build these things, but we thought we were going to stick 50 people in a small club just to get the ball rolling and then work up from there. And we stuck the event page up, and suddenly we had more people coming than there were seats in the place. So a buddy of mine, Donald Mason, who later became the director at the Lyric Theater and is now in San Antonio. But Donald brokered a meeting with the director and at the Lyric Theater, and that's been our home, the downtown historic Lyric Theater in downtown Lexington, Kentucky, and beautiful theater.
That is a beautiful joint.
Yeah, it's just a gorgeous room. Sounds great. Top flight staff, sound crew, everybody. Yeah, everybody's great to work with there. So we've had a real blast, man, doing that. And the show is wonderful because in addition to awards that we have across more than you'd see like at the Grammys. I mean, we have a whole industry section and performer section,
right,
and all sorts of things. But we also the musical performances are also across the spectrum stylistically. So we've had everything from a straight up rock band or country band all the way to we had the high school, one of the high schools in town. Their drum line came down and like came down from the back of the theater and like came into formation on the front, did the whole, they just did like a 2.5, 3 minute drum thing. And it was just, it was incredible. So just, we always try to have like really unexpected performances across all styles of music. So it's been a real blast, from jazz to hip hop to rock to, classical percussion, just really unexpected kind of thing. So it's really, it's a fun and informative and wonderful event. And then we always have a really cool after party where everybody gets to hang out and We've seen a lot of really great collaborations come from just being able to get people in the room together, talented people in the room together, and it's just been a blast. So yeah.
Now, you can't see the comments on the people are leaving, but Rev Critter, Mommy Kitten, and Super Nerdy Geek have all commented. Liked and subbed to you last week. And one thing that I desperately miss is I used to hang out at a joint called Sound Advice. Great name for a music store.
Yeah.
And what kills me is, yes, I can find anything, but I never would have heard of the Concrete Blondes if some weirdo had not hit me up when I was looking at a Lita Ford record.
Yeah.
Went, oh, well, check this out. I probably would not have discovered Tom Waits until a decade later if it had not been for, what was I looking at? I think it was actually Henry Rollins that someone was like, hey, check this out. We lost that community for so many people. And it definitely seems as though you have definitely found a community in Lexington, Kentucky, and you're definitely fighting the fight of keeping a community together instead of just clicking on big corporate site. Found this song, found that song.
Well, we try. The thing is that, I mean, I like the convenience. I'm by no means a Luddite. I really like the convenience of being able to, you're stuck at home for whatever reason, and the ability to surf and find new things and whatnot. But I'm also a big believer in community and in individual interaction. And it's great. I mean, Lexington has a couple of record stores, but they're, you just don't see them like you used to. I mean, all the chains are dead. And just not enough people, I don't think enough people get into those shops, and we have, here we have CD Central and Pops Resale and the Album and several places like that. And I shouldn't name names because then I'll leave some people out and they'll be angry at me, but
it happens.
Yeah. I'm used to people being angry at me, but it's the wonderful thing about this place is you can talk to the guys in the shops, and they'll just say, oh man, you've got to check this out. You've got to check that out. And you get that immediate interaction. And that's the great thing about, on the radio where you have local DJs spinning records, is because they're, rather than having it just come down from corporate, and
Kansas City Max is more responsible for Aerosmith breaking out than Columbia Records ever was, because Columbia Records was obsessed with their VP's nephew, a certain John Bon Jovi.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And before that, they had signed, I think it was Bruce Springsteen at the same time as Aerosmith, roughly. And they really put the push. Not that Bruce didn't deserve the push, but Bruce is awesome. But it
was local DJs that broke them.
Yeah. And one of the greatest rock and roll bands, for my money, I might even say the greatest rock and roll band in history.
They're certainly my favorite. They're the greatest American rock band, and people can argue. People always like to say, well, the Beach Boys were on the record. Yeah. I'm not saying the best selling. I'm saying the greatest. Sure. And all the Kiss fans that are going to be upset, let's not forget how many bad albums they did put out. All right.
Their 70s output was good, and I know that first live album gets all the press as well, but I love that second live album they did in the 70s too, man. I mean, it had like the solo in Shock Me, and the live version of Beth was on that, and the screaming, and I know they dubbed all that in. I've heard, but when you're 10 and 12 and 14 and 16 and you hear that, who gives a shit if they dubbed it all in, man? It was awesome.
Aerosmith live bootleg, no dubbing, by the way.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they didn't dub anything on that. I loved Steven's story about how they did the record, and the label said, no, you have to fix these and dub in some other, and they said okay, so they took the 10 grand and snorted coke for a week and then sent the same mix back, and they're like, oh, this is much better. We'll put it out now. Yeah, they didn't do a damn thing to it. It was great. Yeah, I love that record. I love the record and that's the great thing about albums. I'm an old guy, so I mean I miss holding that record, because you fold that out, that live bootleg, right. You fold out, and there's Joe Perry playing his Strat with his BC Rich strapped on his back at the same time, and Steven out there with a
I still buy records. I still buy records. Sadly, I don't listen to records much. It's just easier to play them digitally, but I still go out and buy records. I'm fortunate where I can, but I want to hold them.
Yeah.
Super Nerdy Geek, thank you. He buys them as well.
Yeah. I do that with locals. Even, anytime I'm in a shop, I try to buy at least one local act, especially if I've not heard them. I like to support the ones I have heard, obviously, but I don't even have a CD player right now. So half the time what I do is I buy them, and then I find people I think might find them interesting and give them away. Right. I just I'm all that sort of paying it forward or whatever.
That's how Metallica. That's how Metallica got big.
Yeah.
The tape exchange.
Yeah. I'd love to buy them because I know it supports them, but like I said, since I can't play it, I can just send it to and then I can pull it up on YouTube. But that way I've already paid for it, so because YouTube isn't paying anybody what they deserve for the streaming any more than Spotify. Oh, I shouldn't beat up on. I'm not beating up on them. I'm just saying they're not paying what they need to pay.
Yeah. When Lars went on his big anti-Napster kick, and I understand, I get it. An unforeseen side effect was, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a longtime local band from your area that I used to run around with and play with. They were signed to a record label, but when record labels lost 25%, of their income due to downloading, they could not take risks. And that's what led to that late 90s, early 2000s repetitive music. It was the same safe music over and over and over. So while, record companies screw them, but unless there's an alternative to get these people out there, which thankfully the internet now does that. You have SoundCloud rappers.
Yeah.
But it was a rough time period.
It is, but there's, the pushback on that, I would say, I think there's a couple pushbacks on that idea. I mean, while there's a certain degree of validity to it, what I will say is, like, when CDs came out, the margin, when they first started selling CDs in the mid 80s, early 80s, whatever it was, the cost was so high because they weren't even sure there was going to be a market for it. You had to have the new technology in order to utilize the new technology and the new medium. So when you're buying, a CD for $15 and the label has $14 in it and it's razor margin on that thing, I get it. But here's the problem. The pushback on with downloading is that very quickly the cost went down to manufacture those, and so the margin, they never reduced the price. So the margin got huge. And what I didn't hear from, I'm not going to name names, but I'll just say from major labels, what I didn't hear was anybody complaining about astronomical profits. For well over a decade, for a decade and a half or more, nobody was bitching that they were suddenly pocketing more money than they'd ever pocketed before. And that notorious short-term thinking that took over the corporate world for a lot of reasons we won't get into, because we'll end up in a heavy-duty political conversation. But the idea was that they corporations had got more and more thinking quarterly as opposed to long term, and they stopped, concerning themselves with longer term investment. And so no one thought, this technology, like every other technology, is going to be surpassed by a new technology. We need to be prepared for that, and we need money in the bank for that, so that we can keep investing in artists and doing what we're doing, because you have to. It's like R&D in any other industry. Your R&D, and that is your artist, and that's what
research and development.
The A&R departments used to be about developing an act, and so that a lot of those critiques that I saw of that time period left out the fact that the model has changed repeatedly over the decades.
Right.
And if you go back and see a movie like Hotel, that whole idea where they're paying them cash and then they keep all the money was the model, and then that model changed 20 years later, and then that model changed again, and it changed again.
Maybe someone should have listened to Frank Zappa all those years ago.
Yes, they should have.
He said it too. He said it to Congress.
Yes, Frank did. Frank pointed a lot of. I mean, he didn't hit a bullseye on everything, of course, because he didn't know all the coming technologies. But
you remember when that was a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, and so I think, to me, the other part is you always get pushback when you get too extreme, and so something's going to happen in the market when you try to manipulate the market. And when I'm about to go off the deep end here, I'm trying not to, but let's just say there are repercussions when you, whether it's just the short-term thinking versus the long-term thinking, or when you ignore technological changes, which historically have always happened. It's not like technology was invented in the 21st century. And so one of your other things, though, is when you go, well, I want to keep extending these copyright protections longer and longer with the Sonny Bono Copyright Extension Act and the Digital Millennium Copyright Act that nobody talks about anymore. Copyright's good for 7 years. I mean, now 14 years, 28 years, or 28 years and a re-up, and then suddenly it's 50 years, and now it's 72 years, and then it's the lifetime of the author plus, and then what's the lifetime of Disney when Disney comes in and buys, or owns the copyright by default. And so what happens is when you start getting things like that happening that manipulate then what happens in the marketplace, then you're going to get people responding by downloading, because why would I pay $20 for it when I know your profit margin, is 900%, when you could drop that down. And
reasonable people will do the right thing as long as it's reasonable.
Yeah.
The more unreasonable one side gets, the more.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the whole, if you get political, like the left-right thing, and the if the left suddenly starts going off the chart, then there's going to be a repercussion from the other side, and then everybody, then they get surprised by it, and it's like, why are you surprised? So, I see a lot of that in the
your state had almost 40,000 people voted for a libertarian gubernatorial candidate. You had 40,000 people vote for the governor, libertarian.
Who was that?
I don't remember the candidate's name, but
what was the state?
Oh, Kentucky.
Oh,
Bashir.
Yeah.
The governor you have now won by less than 8,000 votes, and 40,000 people voted third party. That's a sign that both sides might have been a bit too far.
Yeah. I actually was unaware of that. I didn't realize that the libertarian candidate got so many votes.
Yeah, it was huge. It's not happened since the days of Gilbert Galbraith, when Kentucky had such a big third party presence.
Yeah. Well, and prior to that, the prior when it was Bevan and Conway, I guess it was. I forgot who everybody else forgot who was running against him too, because he didn't get out there and do the work. But they had, independent. Drew Curtis was running independently, and really ended up, having a lot bigger influence, even though we didn't get the votes in the end. He actually put a lot of the topics on the table. If you go back and look at some of the debates, for example, and the interviews, the whole pension thing came out because he mentioned it, and they were like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. So everyone was shocked.
Yeah, Drew was the one who actually put that on the table, and my shock was that, knowing that he put it on the table, that more people didn't go, "Well, I'm voting for that guy." They ended up, they
were like, "Well, between those other two that knew nothing about it, I'm going to blame that one." Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Tribalism. Which does bring me to the first topic that'll piss off hopefully everyone, but at least half the people. Now, I know you don't stay up on politics because you're so much smarter than I am. Plus, you're busy with actual good stuff. No, in Oregon, which is a wonderful place, minus Portland. Sorry.
I've actually never been to Oregon, so I don't. I've only been on the West Coast. I've been to California, but I've not been anywhere else on the West Coast.
Oh, I'm sorry. My 3 complaints about Oregon are: 1, Portland is awful. The beer is bad. Everything costs too much. And it seems like the population of the state or of the city is 13 or 70. There's no in the middle.
Yeah.
2, you cannot pump your own gas. Like,
are you kidding?
Yeah, the law is, unless they've changed it, the law was other people, you cannot pump your own gas. The reasoning was it creates jobs, which is great. I love going to places where they pump the gas for me. I do. But I don't like being told I can't pump my own gas. I'm one of those people.
I'm with you.
And Oregon required a special permit to drive a semi through the state, unless it's been changed. I've not been a truck driver in a long time.
Yeah.
So I would pick stuff up in San Diego, and I'm bringing it to Yakima, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have to drive up to Oregon and either drop off for someone else, a local driver, to pick it up and drive it to state lines, or I'd have to veer around Oregon and go up through Idaho and Montana.
Wow.
And again, to create jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rest of the state's fantastic.
Yeah, I think probably a better. I mean, I'm just a guitar player, so what kind of I almost popped off with some more foul language. I'm sorry.
I curse I would say I curse like a sailor, but the Navy always complained about my language. That's why I'm in Army.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I'm just a guitar player, so fuck all do I know about markets, right? But I mean,
right.
Being that I'm a self-employed,
you're a small business.
I might know a little bit, and I would say that from experience, where the rubber meets the road in the marketplace, not from reading a textbook. Nothing wrong with textbooks. I'm not
right.
beating on that, but just you got to do the acid test on everything, and you have to do it continually, because books become out of date as market things change and whatnot, and technology changes and everything else changes. I would say a better way to create jobs is to minimize, and I'm not saying, because I know everybody immediately says, "Oh, he wants to deregulate everything." No, but what you don't need is a bunch of stifling regulations,
right? And
you don't need, you don't need hairdressers, for example, to have state or city licensed type, because then what happens is
licensed medical stuff, right? I demand medical practitioners be certified and observed and monitored, so that yes, the restaurant serving my food, have them make sure that they're being safe. Sure, but why do I have to go and get a license from the state, pay the state money so that I can drive on their road.
Yeah. Yeah. And what job does it create except the bureaucrats?
Right. And it creates a whole market of day drivers out of Oregon who they now have truck driving gigs where they don't do anything other than pick up what I drop off, drive it to the state line, and then drop it off. Like, there's just trailer taxis.
Yeah.
And good for them, but, you know.
Yeah. I like minimal interventions. I like, if you're going to intervene, then you want to intervene with surgical precision for a problem that exists, and not try to do wide sweeping things that always create unforeseen consequences, and with consequence meaning problem. You know, so yeah, I don't like wide sweeping, and so many of those laws are not written by legislators anyway. They're written by you know, people in the, I'm not going to name any names, but I mentioned the Digital Millennium Copyright Act earlier, and I knew a guy years ago, an attorney, and he was with the law firm who wrote the legislation, the actual legislation. I mean, the people whose name is on it for writing it didn't write it. It was a law firm. And so when you're going, well, if the law firm wrote it, then the law firm is going to write it in a way that they have the most to gain by it. And if you read for anybody who's interested in IP law, I mean, that's just a good IP example, because you read it and you realize this is all about, you know, content side, not user side. And I think there can be a rational and reasonable balance between those two. It doesn't have to be draconian on the side of either one, because then it creates problems.
Rakita Law is a YouTube channel that covers a lot of the lawsuits that are covered by this. Sargon of Akkad was sued by Aquila, obviously. And yeah, it's fascinating subject. Real quick though, Neo, red or blue?
I don't remember the movie well enough to know which one.
It doesn't matter. Just color.
Oh, all right, red.
All right. I'm just curious if I'm going to drink rum or whiskey.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're allowed to drink on the air here?
Hopefully, because that's what I do.
Oh, wow.
Last time,
I'm not using my mixing water today, but this is some
nice old limestone.
Yeah, man. That's that's like the perfect water to put in your makers. And if you like a little bubbly, then you don't want to go with the Giants. You want to go with the Kentucky local Ale 8, and mix that. We had at the awards, we had Ale 8 and Makers slushies. So they brought in a slushy machine, and I only got a quick taste because I'm producing the show, so I'm running around. But everybody was like, "Man, that was the best stuff ever." So if you've got yourself some Makers and some Ale 8, you can make a slushy, and if not, you can mix it with that.
Makers is definitely my favorite foreign-owned bourbon.
Foreign-owned? What?
They got bought out by Star.
Well, yeah, but they're still made locally. I mean, they're still ownership changed hands, but it's still made.
If it's not made there, then it's not bourbon. Yeah, I know that's pretentious. I'm one of those people that goes, it's not California champagne, it's sparkling white wine.
Yeah,
champagne is the region.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they, I think it used to be a law; it had to be made, because it started in Bourbon County, hence the name, and then spread from there. But I think it had to be made in the state. But now I know they've got like
now they have Texas bourbon and
Japanese bourbon.
Now, I will give Japan. I'll give Japan some leadway on that. They generally don't call it bourbon, but they make it. They used to call it bourbon style. Sakura whiskey, who did not buy Jim Beam. They entered into a partnership with Jim Beam. That way, we can now get Sakura in, or not Sakura, Suntory. Jeez, sorry, Suntory whiskey. You can now get in America without having to pay that import tax, and you can now get Jim Beam in Japan without paying the import tax.
Ah,
Cha-ching.
cha-ching. There you go. I don't have a cup at mine, but normally I would be civilized.
I think you froze for a second. But we were talking about federal or government intervention. It isn't quarantine unless it comes from quarantine region of France. Otherwise, it's just sparkling isolation. Nice. I like that. But talking about government intervention, the
Or on here.
There you go.
Am I back? Okay.
You're back. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But speaking of government intervention and Oregon, the DA was refusing to prosecute rioters. Now, I know there's discussion on whether it's a peaceful protest or a riot, but when you shoot someone in the head, you're a rioter. So the DA refused to prosecute people who committed crimes during protests or riots. The federal government has now deputized the Oregon State Police so that they can now bypass the state attorneys and prosecute people at the federal level. It's scary to me that it happened because I don't like government intervention. But when the people are requesting assistance from the state and the state denies them, 10th Amendment dictates the federal government has to step in.
Okay. I missed the beginning of that because it froze.
Oh,
up
it froze on your end?
Yeah. I didn't hear the very beginning of that, but I'll say right on as far as that goes, I'm not as up to speed as I would need to be on that to have
right. And it's not the specifics, but the general idea of it.
Yeah, my biggest issue, I think, with any of those, like in the autonomous zone in Seattle, for example. Now, depends on where you're getting your source, because on one side you're seeing it's love and peace, and the other side you're seeing, and so I wasn't in Seattle. So the first caveat there is that I don't have a clue,
right?
And how much of that contextually was happening a lot versus this isolated thing and that it blown into looking like that. So I don't know, but I will say that while I'm very sympathetic to even the concept of autonomous zones and very against government overreach, and I think most of what government does is overreach.
Yes.
At the same time, one of the jobs that government has, they really have very few. When you look, if you start at the federal level and look constitutionally, it's like, well, things like defense and printing money and staffing the courts and not a whole lot else. And when you move to the state level, there's a handful of things, and the city level, there's a handful of things there too. And one of those is to, if your business can't operate, if you owned a bookshop in the middle of what ended up becoming an autonomous zone, even putting aside the idea that people were extorting money, because I don't know that that was across the border, if that was like one or two people, and it may have had to do with something completely different and not really because it was an autonomous zone, or just somebody taking advantage of the fact that suddenly there weren't police in there. But if you have businesses who can't conduct business, then you've got to take a look at a certain point. Am I, as the mayor, or if the mayor's not the governor, am I not doing what I'm supposed to be doing to make sure that people can maintain their lives? And I'll say on the flip side of that, though, when the government side creates problems, there's going to be individual side pushback. And so it's really hard. It's a balancing act, and it's hard to have a rational conversation because it was immediately politicized.
Yes.
And so if you say, Oh no, autonomous zones are then suddenly you're, a libtard, whatever the
Right.
insult, the current insult's going to be. And if you're like, man, you got to be able to have some law and order, then suddenly you're a Nazi, So it is
Right.
there's zero, it's such a tightrope to be able to have a rational conversation about any of these topics at this point.
As a former libertarian, it reminds me of back to Oregon. Bundy and his crew went and took over some wildlife refuge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a bunch of people saying, this land is ours. We're exempt from the federal government. We want nothing to do with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the federal government sent in people, shot and killed some people, and shut it down. Now, I'm sympathetic with them, not because of their political ideology, but because they went to a big empty piece of land and said, we are free from you. As opposed to going to Capitol Hill, which is just on top of Pike's Market. For those familiar with Seattle, they went to one of the richest, nicest parts of the city and said, hey, these 6 blocks are now ours. All the people that live here, all the people that have businesses here, you're now part of our country. That's an invasion.
Yeah, 50,000 people and 150 shops, and
So I don't care what your political leanings are when it comes to this. You want to be free? All right, I'm with you. You want to go start your own country? Absolutely. I'm a little cautious about where you want to do it, though. Are you taking someone's land?
Yeah.
Right. If you want to build a compound in Waco, Texas, by yourself, and they're all consenting adults, I'm not as concerned.
Sure.
Whereas, and now again, before anyone goes, oh, you're siding with, no, I'm saying consenting adults want to start a commune in Red Lick, Kentucky, and they're all adults and no one's hurting anybody, then absolutely, it's great. And you should go visit them on Thursdays. They have a drum circle.
Ah, there we go.
But they didn't show up in Wildy, Kentucky, and take over someone's farm.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely see that. I don't know what the citizens of Seattle were thinking. Again, I wasn't there, and I don't know.
Right.
I don't even think I know anyone currently in Seattle. I know people have, but
I have a son there.
So I don't know what their thoughts on it were, and I don't know why they chose that particular section. I don't know how many of those people were not even from Seattle or even the West Coast. So again, there's so much information I don't have to have an informed opinion about that. I'll just say, as I did before, I'm sympathetic to the notion of autonomous zones and not being leaned on by organized force, which is really all government is. At the same time, the reason that's there is so that people don't bully their way over other people. And if your actions in taking a section are infringing on other people, then you've already, you need to walk that tightrope with some serious contemplation as to, am I taking the right course of action? And I understand a lot of the pushback is what about other people who've been stepped on in the past and, systemic things, right. And we can get into all that, but
I think being ignorant of the specifics while being knowledgeable of reality and law and morality makes you uniquely qualified to give an honest answer without being swayed by politics or political opinion, which I think is wonderful, but almost a little bit scary that not knowing the specifics makes it easier to make a decision on it. It's like being a parent and your two kids have been fighting, it's a lot easier to say, all right, I don't care who started it. Don't hit your sister. Stay out of your brother's room.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those are tough situations because again, I'm very sympathetic to a lot of the causes that are and sometimes, whether it's just the perception of a situation,
Right.
sometimes people are flat wrong in terms of, numbers or facts or statistics or what have you. And I'm not aiming at any particular topic
Right.
here. I'm just saying it as a general thing. We can often be incorrect, but if there's a perception of some sort of wrongdoing, it needs to be addressed and at least looked at. And I think a lot of times when we're looking at topics, whether it's the left protesting or the right protesting, often there's the perception of something, and then the argument begins because the pushback doesn't have anything to do with facts either.
Right.
And then so suddenly you're not having any rational conversation as adults are supposed to have, which you have as a bunch of adults acting like children. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at any particular movement.
But it's safe to assume that most people, when it comes to any topic of politics, they get so emotionally vested and so butthurt that reason and conversation have left the building long ago.
Yeah. I mean, it really does, because people are very much. I think that's why you have a lot of the hypocrisy on both sides of the aisle. And anytime it's pointed out, the best anybody manages is, but your side did it too.
Yeah.
As opposed to just owning.
The whataboutisms.
Yeah. It's like, why not just own your own bullshit and then move to correct it? And then the other side either owns their own bullshit, moves to correct it, or they don't. If they don't, then you can say, look, you can talk about shit from 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or as far back as you want. But if we're talking about now, we've corrected our bullshit. And then you'd have some moral leg to stand on, but instead it never goes there. So people who want Trump are not going to see anything that he's done wrong, and they're only going to see the horribleness that is Biden and Harris. And if they want Biden and Harris, they're not going to recognize or acknowledge any of their faults, and they're only going to see, the horribleness that is Pence and Trump. And you look at that and you can go back and go, hey man, like in 2016, Rick Perry said, pointed this out, or so-and-so pointed that out, and you can hit all the things on Trump, but everybody's conveniently forgot that, just as you can go back to just these recent debates and go, look what Tulsi Gabbard ended Kamala Harris in 4 minutes or less, or seemingly
destroyed her, ended her presidential run.
Ended her. And if it hadn't been for the fact that Biden picked her, she was done. Tulsi just stomped her into the ground. But we're all going to conveniently forget, and what everybody also conveniently forgets. And I'm spending more time on the Democratic side. That's not. I think that's mostly because we've had so much history of beating up on the other side. So I don't see any need to rehash that and eat up a bunch of time on that. But with that debate, everybody also conveniently forgets that seconds before Harris got destroyed by Tulsi, Harris was in the middle of destroying Biden.
Yes.
She had just by my lights. I could be wrong. Right. Maybe I don't have a clear memory of the event, but at least the headspace I was in at the moment I saw that clip.
Everyone seems to have pulled an Alyssa Milano on that subject.
Well, she just laid Biden to waste, and then turned around and got laid to waste by Tulsi. And I'm like, did we all forget all of that? We're suddenly going to pretend that our guys are perfect. I think it's a bad. And again, I'm not picking on picking on Biden and Harris for the sake of picking on Biden and Harris. I think not acknowledging their downfalls, it's a bad strategy if you want to beat Trump, is what I'm driving at here.
Right.
But normally you can't get this far into the conversation because as soon as you say something bad about Biden, the conversation's over if you're talking to someone who supports. Just as if you say something about Trump to someone who supports Trump, the conversation's over. You can't say, dude, like the guy's got a history of spending everybody else's money. He said he was going to be responsible fiscally and he's doing nothing but spend, you can't. And immediately all the Trump guys are like, fuck you, you're a libtard.
I am so lucky that I was able to sit down on a live stream. There were 4 of us. One, a hardcore Trump supporter. One, I hate Donald Trump, he's the devil. And someone who's like, I don't like either one, but I'm kind of leaning this way.
Sure.
And I was not one of those 3. And me being the only straight white male in the entire thing without sexuality or gender ever coming up. Or race.
Yeah.
No one mentioned race, sexuality, or gender. The gay, the bi, the female, everyone just, let's focus on what's important. This is the subject. This is how I feel. This is how you feel. This is why. This is how we disagree. Okay, now let's all agree that Neil Peart is a terrible drummer. Okay, I said the Neil Peart thing, but I'm right.
Yeah, it's not that I discount the whole, again, to use the modern parlance, lived experience. I mean, certainly that matters. I've not had your particular experiences, so if we're going to get into those conversations, I'm clearly going to defer to your better judgment on within certain areas.
Right.
But that said, when people when you're dealing with facts, the source of those facts, or the source in terms of the person conveying those facts, simply does not matter. If we're talking gravity, and we're looking over the mathematics of gravity,
weighing less than me doesn't mean I have more knowledge of gravity just because gravity affects me more.
Well, I'm just saying it doesn't, when you start getting into to someone's sex or gender, or gender, or their color or their sexual orientation, or none of that makes any difference. And anyone who says that it makes a difference is just not they're not interfacing properly with reality.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter how many boxes you're checking, you're still dead if you step off the Empire State Building without a parachute. It does not care who you are or what you think.
If your argument is flawed, saying, but I'm this, it's not golf. We're not playing with handicaps.
Yes.
So I don't care. I personally took down the Berlin Wall. Not by myself.
Yeah.
I have a piece about like this size.
Yeah.
My brother has a piece about that size.
Yeah.
Just saying my piece is bigger. But, we were kids chipping away at the wall. I didn't understand how big a deal that was. I just remember President Reagan talking about it. And then President Bush talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean that your aunt, I'm making this part up. I don't know your aunt. Your aunt left East Germany in 1974 at the age of fucking 40. I now have more knowledge of East Germany, West Germany than she does because I was there. No, that's not true. It wouldn't mean I have more knowledge than you do when you grew up listening to your aunt's stories. Like, yeah, it's great context, and it's great to show where I formed my opinion. And that's on the emotional side and helps us empathize with each other. But 2 + 2 will never be 5.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you're having a conversation that includes facts, that does not matter who's conveying those facts. Something that is true and accurate is true and accurate regardless of who's saying it. I think we often confuse those two. There's and I suppose there's gray area to be discussed between those two things.
Right.
But the idea that you have to be this or you have to be that in order to have a conversation about
seems a bit racist.
Well, if race is the thing that someone's pulling, or gender, or sexual orientation, or whatever the topic at hand.
It seems ist or ism.
Sure. Yeah. Because if you're looking at, if you're talking about, STD rates, then the STD rates are what they are, and it doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is in discussing those. It may matter when you're talking about on the battlefield, so as it were, in terms of transmission or something of that nature. And I'm saying this as someone old enough to remember when the whole
horror stories
came. Well, because it's it's a gay disease. I mean, that was like the first thing, and it's and so then there was this whole stigma around it, and there was and it was just it was a mess back then, and it got
we did not know how it was transmitted. We knew it was affected by one group more than the others, so we all just jumped on that. We jumped on the one thing we did know is it affects the gay community more.
Yeah. Well, and it also IV drug users, it also affected more, but they didn't talk about that in the press.
That sort of carried over a lot.
Sure. I mean, you're gonna have overlap in any communities.
We all jumped on that fact that we knew instead of focusing on the is it transferred by a toilet seat?
Yeah.
Well, it depends who you're sharing the toilet seat with.
Yeah, and I think the problem when they start leaning into those particular details is that it potentially gets in the way of action. Because
theory, emotion, block, logic, and reasoning.
Yeah, if you're talking about a day, and it was a day when people, it was still a huge deal. I mean, I'm assuming it's still to some degree, probably a huge deal coming out now, but certainly not like it was a decade and 2 decades and 3 and 4 decades back.
We can now talk to our kids and be like, look, this is how it spread. Yes, you should be cautious. Whereas before, it was parents like, I don't know. All I know is there's a terrible disease that's killing people and you don't want it. How do I get it? I don't know. But this is who has it. So stay away from them.
Gay. Yeah. It was like a don't be gay. Yeah. And that's, that's one of those negative outcomes of grouping and thinking in terms of groups in that way. Is because then then you immediately set up a particular group, and then either devalue that group, and oftentimes it comes from a group who's already devalued, socially speaking, who doesn't have the social capital, as it were, at a particular time. I mean, obviously these are all, temporally bound, but and it got in the way of research, and it got in the way of action at that time. It was a pretty horrible scenario. And then suddenly it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's no longer just affecting this community. Damn, we better do something, and that was that I think for many people was a wake-up call to how we treat anyone who isn't us, whoever us may be, at any from any particular frame of reference. I know it was with me. I realized suddenly, man, that like this, just because they're labeling this group, now this group suddenly is going to be discriminated against, and in pretty horrible ways. And then the repercussions, of course, are because it's not just within this group. It just adversely impacted a particular group within a certain time frame. Then there was some pretty horrible outcomes for everybody in the group and without the outside of the group. So, at any rate,
to move on to I promise it is mostly cheerful, but it does start with something negative first.
Sure. these are fun, I should say, because I do a lot of press stuff, television and radio and whatnot, and these are topics that never come up when I'm in most of those venues. I would probably skirt around those topics anyway. But,
right.
But this is fun because I don't get this as a general thing.
I learned, and I remember telling you this story 20 years ago, so you probably don't remember it, but Bill Clinton was running for re-election.
Mm-hmm.
And me, being a snotty little pretentious kid, hanging out with other pretentious people, we asked a homeless person, because we were arguing over who was going to win the election and blah, 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 like kids do.
Mm-hmm.
So my buddy asked this homeless person, well, what do you think about who's going to win the presidency? Which, admittedly, could have been rather douchey. And the dude handled it like a fucking boss. He just said, well, I think Bill Clinton's going to get reelected. I'm pretty confident in this.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's like, oh, really? How do you know? Because I'm homeless and I smoke cigarette butts. I pick up cigarette butts at people, leave. That's what I smoke. And people are throwing cigarettes down half smoked, which means they're feeling pretty good about the economy. They're not stressed out. People are feeling good. They're going to vote to keep things the way they are. And both of us were just like, tell us more, Sensei.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's absolutely very important to talk to people about stuff, or else we get stuck in our echo chambers.
Yeah, echo chamber's a dangerous place to be. I did a social experiment. Was it probably, I don't know, 8 years ago, 12 years ago? I forgot which election cycle it was. And Obamacare, it must have been 12 because the Obamacare was all the rage before it was passed, and it was prior to that. And I remember saying, because things were already very politicized. I guess they always have been to varying degrees, but I made the point that you can't really understand the other side unless you can articulate the other side's position. Steelman, let's do a Steelman. We all had to do that in, speech class or
extemporaneous debate.
Yeah, like
back when they used to teach us this.
Yeah, they did. I mean, it used to be, we're doing, all right, this week you're going to be, on the abortion issue, you're going to be pro-choice. And then you have to do the speech, and you better convince anyone who's really pro-choice, like that you need to make their point better than they've made it. But next week, you're going to be on the opposite side, and you need to make that case. And this is an A or an F. This is a pass or fail. So you better get this shit right. You don't have the luxury of just saying anyone who disagrees with me is a libtard or a Nazi. It's simply that's the child's table. If you want to come sit at the adult table, you have to be able to articulate the other side to such a degree that they know you understand their side, and they're absolutely like, damn, and you even said it in a way that, I even missed that point. I'd never even given that part any thought.
If you don't understand me, then how can you really disagree with me? And if you can't really disagree with me, then why should I listen to you tell me I'm wrong? Yeah,
because it's just people talking shit then. And it may be adults, but it's only adults chronologically. It's certainly not adults emotionally or intellectually if they cannot break down an argument with which they disagree and articulate that argument in a comprehensive and meaningful way. And I was very depressed because I don't often talk politics on social media, and I took the opportunity to go, here's this experiment. If you are, and again, Obamacare was the thing under debate at the moment. So I said, if you're for it, I want you to go over here to this blog page, this thing that I wrote up, and I want you to articulate the opposite side. And if you're against it, I want you to articulate, give me every reason we should have it or every reason we shouldn't have it, but it has to be the other opinion. And I had one out of like, 100 likes on the thing and, a bunch of comments flying around, I actually had one person, and she was a nurse, responded partially and said that she would get back to it, and she never got back to it. I know it's because she's a nurse and she was fucking busy, but no one else, people had time to comment and say how stupid the other side was on the social media portion, but none of them attempted the actual exercise. And I'm like, man, this is not, I shouldn't be asking anything hard here. This is stuff we all had to do. I thought that we all had to do in school. What gives?
Before the days of participation trophies.
I just don't understand. I mean, a lot of these were people my age, and I don't, and it wasn't just people, this was on social media, so it wasn't geographically bound. I mean, so there's not the excuse that I grew up, because I'm an Army brat, so I grew up all over. I mean, I spent 6 out of my first 18 years in Washington, D.C., and also lived in St. Louis, and lived in, Georgia and Tennessee and Kentucky and
let's
Minnesota.
Georgia. Georgia is like a recurring theme. Every time I'm in a live stream on someone else's channel, Georgia always comes up, and I always I don't know if you watched my awful, terrible video I just uploaded. Not the brain surgery one, the singularity one.
Yes, yeah.
Even then, I found a way to be like, naked singularities, unless you're in Georgia.
Unless you're, yeah. Give me the lowdown on why. What do you dislike about Georgia?
I was stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, 3 separate times.
And which one?
Fort Stewart, Savannah.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, okay, yeah. I love
1997. They had 2 McDonald's. They had 2 Walmarts. They had 2 Waffle Houses, and it's check your pigment to see which one you go to.
Yeah.
And it's not because it was one race of people being racist. It was everyone there was an awful human being. Everyone there was a horrible racist against everyone around them. It's a military base, so naturally, and cancel me for this one, but naturally there's a large number of Koreans.
Okay.
And they were involved in racist bullshit against the Filipinos.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it wasn't that way in San Antonio. It wasn't that way in Baltimore. It wasn't that way in Washington State. The Koreans and the Filipinos, same cookouts. I grew up, my best friend was Filipino, and my other best friend was Korean. Race was never a thing growing up until I got to Georgia.
They probably just talk about it more in Georgia.
Kids are kids, man. Kids, I was way too
you were a kid.
I was way too old when I found out racism still existed.
Yeah, well, yeah, me too. But I think it's different on a lot of military bases when you're growing up on them, because because you're immediately dealing from people from all around the country and all around the world.
We grew up kind of exempt from racism in a lot of ways.
In a way, I mean, I remember there being a very specific, for example, I'm probably about 10 years older than you or so. I mean, I remember very specific issues that were considered black issues, for example. But it wasn't an issue, at least on the military base. I mean, it may have been a huge issue elsewhere, but I was living on military bases. So it wasn't an issue there. It didn't cause a dividing line.
I spent the 80s in Europe, though, so I definitely missed a lot.
Yeah.
I got to the States in the 90s.
Yeah, see, I think maybe in Georgia it's just discussed more openly. I don't think it's any less. I mean, if you hang out, I was hanging out with some guys. There was a whole Ethiopian community that I was hanging with for a while, and you wouldn't think but if you want to hear some racist stuff, hear like some of those guys talk about guys from West Africa, and it's like, holy shit, man. I'm like, out of this conversation. I'm leaving this to you guys. I'm out of here. Like, when you guys calm that down, I'll be back.
I had a Nigerian soldier, and we had an Ethiopian MD.
Yeah.
And we could not put them together. He could not work for the Ethiopian MD because it's like, why are you questioning me? Is it because it's like, whoa, dude.
Yeah. There's, and it's crazy because you get that in everything. You get that with it used to be, they even have movies about it, like, 100 years ago in New York, where you've got, the Italians and the Irish, and they're rah, and you've got, and suddenly the Chinese rah, and then if you call someone from, China, Japanese, or, rah, and like, so it doesn't, it's across the board.
Right. It just seemed like it always seemed growing up, it was a one-on-one thing. It was never an entire group of people segregated themselves and attacked another group that had segregated themselves. It was like, dude, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't really see it that way. People were able to talk about race issues, for example, or any number of other issues. But since we're on race, it didn't really cause a divide between people based on race. They would just be able to discuss, the worst it got is what you just don't understand because you're not in my, okay, fair enough. You're right. I'm not experiencing that because I'm not in your shoes. Fair enough. But that was about as close to a divide as there was. It didn't really cause a divide outside of that. So I don't know if it's just something that is more open in the South, or if it's, I don't know. You got me on that, or if it's just less.
Fort Stewart has a specific problem, and
is it Fort Stewart, or is it the town around Fort Stewart?
It's both, because the town around Fort Stewart is really a population of like civilians. It's like no one hardly, right? It's essentially the town itself. So it's military kids, right? A military base had 2 high schools, one for the white kids and one for the black kids.
Wow.
On a military base. How the hell does this happen?
Yeah,
it's a weird thing. You may not recognize this. Most people that aren't ex-military of a certain age don't catch it. But do you remember hearing about ring knockers?
No.
Okay. The Army changed the way they do promotion photos, DA photos for promotion, because you had 2 types of ring knockers. You had the people that wear West Point rings.
Okay.
And which this may offend someone. So to all the lieutenants out there that went to West Point, let me speak monosyllabic for you, you moron. West Point bad. Now, everyone that went to some other school, especially the Citadel, they understand. West Point bad. I know your father was an officer. Now, the other group is Black Masons.
Okay.
Black people who joined the Masonic Lodge formed a cohesive bond with one another because they were dealing with racism every day.
Sure.
In the 60s and the 70s. In the 90s, it's not as big of an issue, but it had created a situation where if you saw someone who was black, if they had the ring, then you knew they were one of you, and you would promote them. Because after E6, you don't do boards anymore. You don't stand before a board.
Okay.
Just like officers would be like, oh, look, that's a West Point ring. Promote them. So the Army changed it so that you can't have your rings showing in your DA photos anymore. Because you have to wear a uniform. You nothing shows other than your ribbons and medals, but you could show your military ring and your wedding band. Well, they changed it so you can't show your hands anymore. So now you can't tell if someone's married, a member of a fraternity, or this and that.
Yeah.
And that ended that. But it had not happened yet in Georgia or in the Army. And Fort Stewart, while the United States Army had a population of, or a percentage of the black soldiers were in the mid-20s. The percentage of black soldiers in Fort Stewart was in the low 40s. It became a safe haven for ring knockers.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Get revenge on everyone else.
Yeah.
It'd be like, imagine going to a duty station where all the officers were from West Point. For the record, I'm not making fun of all West Pointers, just a particular platoon leader I had long ago. I'd say you know who you are, but I'm not sure you can figure out how to click a mouse and work YouTube.
I figured there was a personal connection on that one, so it was, yeah.
And yes, my old commander, he does watch this, and he is going to send a link to my favorite lieutenant ever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. See, I didn't go to school in Georgia. Like the last place I was before I came to Kentucky, when I was still an Army brat, was Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. Fort Lost in the Woods. Rah, right.
Fort Lost in the Woods. I was there.
Yeah. Were you? Yeah.
Well, you tell your Lost in the Woods story. I'm gonna turn off the camera so I can get you something cool.
Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't. I just didn't. It's not so much a story. It's just I didn't. My experience there, for example, doesn't. It isn't. It's just. It's not the same as your experience in Georgia. And for that matter, my experience. Of course, it's not the South. I don't know. Maybe it's a Southern thing. I mean, I'm not beating up on the South. That's where all my my family's. Georgia and surrounding areas, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. I was born in Texas, so I'm not beating up on the South. And maybe it's just that things are certain topics are discussed more openly there. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was always that bad, and I was, or it may just be.
Never had that experience in Western Georgia, or Texas, or Kentucky, or Tennessee, or Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Probably would have had it in Mississippi, but I wasn't there. But speaking of Lost in the Woods.
Yeah. What is
it? Damn it.
I saw the I love, what is it?
The Fort Leonard Wood exit connects to a small town in Missouri called Uranus.
Oh, like
yes.
I was thinking Waynesville. Isn't it Waynesville, Missouri on the?
Yes, but there's a small town. Think of Renfro Valley.
Okay.
Right, like between Mount Vernon and Berea, you got Renfro Valley. This small town called Uranus has three things. They have a museum, they have a restaurant, and they have a fudge factory. I got a bunch of t-shirts there. Uranus. The best fudge comes from Uranus. Oh. And when you walk in, they say, "Welcome to Uranus Fudge Packing. How can we pack your fudge?" So anytime that comes up, if you're ever going through Leonard Wood area, Missouri, between St. Louis and Springfield, stop in at Uranus Fudge Factory. Buy a shirt, buy a hat, and they do have sugar-free fudge that is good that I did give to my diabetic parents.
Oh, man. And I made that trip to Springfield too. Like there, yeah, when I was a kid. So
Yes.
yeah, I had no idea, man. I had no idea.
I didn't either until my last cross country trip. I'm like, Uranus, and then it's not Uranus Fudge Factory.
Oh man, that's classic.
Oh yeah, brilliant. But to switch over real quick,
Sure.
today is the 2nd of September,
Mm-hmm.
and they're calling him the greatest Met that ever was. Tom Seaver, he passed away. Hall of Fame pitcher. He lost his life today. He was an elderly gentleman. I don't know why they're saying he's the greatest Met of all time. Maybe because he just died. I think Darryl Strawberry might disagree, but that's okay. So, F in the chat, gentlemen, for good old Tom Seaver. But because today's not totally terrible, and because my birthday's in a few days, today is the birthday of Selma Hayek, as well as Keanu Reeves. Now, Selma Hayek, the amazingly attractive actress from Frida and Desperado.
Vanilla Sky.
Yes. No, that was Penelope Cruz.
Was it Penelope Cruz? I could have sworn it was
Cruz.
Say that I screwed it all up, man. Now she's not going to call me.
Penelope Cruz and Selma Hayek did do Banditos together, which is probably why you confused them. When Selma Hayek was a young lady, a young girl, she would go to Mass. Being Mexican, she's going to be Catholic like me. And she would get holy water and she would sprinkle it into her bra. And she would pray that she would grow breasts and would not be flat like her mother. So everyone needs to, when you get the chance, watch Desperado, watch Frida, and watch, there's a few others, and thank the Lord for Selma Hayek's breasts. Happy birthday, Selma. You are
Happy birthday, Selma.
And it's also Keanu Reeves' birthday, who the internet loves. I've always been a Keanu Reeves fan. I think he's a wonderful actor who used to get shit on. People shit on him for Bram Stoker's Dracula because he does a very wooden British accent. Yes.
Yeah.
He does a bad job. He should have just spoken with his American dialect. But hey, he's a good actor. If you don't think so, watch My Own Private Idaho, which is he plays a gay porn star, gay for pay though, in a retelling of Henry V. And River Phoenix is one of his final movies, a huge movie for the two of them. And also, Keanu Reeves in possibly my favorite Shakespearean film by Kenneth Branagh. Keanu Reeves embarrasses Denzel Washington by nailing his part in Shakespeare as John the Bastard. While Denzel Washington is just lost. He just doesn't fit. And it's not because of his race. It's because he cannot do dynamic pentameter. He can't do it. Keanu did. For the record.
I did not see those, but I did just see John Wick, the first two John Wick. There's a third one, right? I haven't seen.
I haven't seen the third one yet, but Halle Berry's in that one.
Okay, yeah, I saw. One of my kids said you got to see this, and so we watched the first John Wick, and then I was over a couple of weeks ago and visiting with him, and he threw the second John Wick in, and we watched that one. So I'm sure the next cookout when all the grandkids are out playing, we'll sit down and squeeze in the third John Wick and see that too. I thought he was good in that. Like, that's not normally my thing, but that was, he plays it well.
But yes, also what people may not know is he's had a very tragic life. His father left when he was a young man. He was born in Lebanon, by the way. He's Hawaiian, but he was born in Lebanon, born in Beirut. And his father and mother, they split. Him and his dad sat out on the porch in the dark, in silence. His dad put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Yeah, I'll see you later." 10 years later, he got a card, and he's never spoken to him since.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
You know, very sad, heartbreaking. He traveled a lot. He had one child, a girl named Ava. She was stillborn. And that caused his relationship to spiral. His last relationship that he had publicly until now. And his partner got depression and then died in a car accident.
Oh, geez.
And immediately after, his best friend dies of an overdose, River Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And he has never openly discussed any of this. He always just does his thing.
Yeah.
He has spent $125 million of his own money privately on charity that they can track. They estimate it's probably more. His sister had leukemia, and his entire salary for all the Matrix movies went to his sister.
Oh, wow.
Other than he bought the entire crew motorcycles.
Yeah. I did hear about that. I knew he did. I knew he had some tragedy in his life, and I knew that he had done the motorcycle thing. Other than that, I didn't know any
Never
of
really
that.
talks about it. Also, because I was looking him up, because he had some. They're trying to cancel him because that's what people do. No, he started a comic book. He's doing fundraising for a comic book. I think it's called The Marauder. It's like a samurai comic, and he's raising money on Kickstarter.
Okay.
So I should have had a link prepared for it, but nah.
Why are they trying to cancel?
They're trying to cancel him because one of the authors or artists or writers, someone working on the comic book, is part of Comicsgate. And Comicsgate is a movement where people decided they're tired of politics being an identity. They're tired of identity politics and political messages in comic books, and they just want their fucking superheroes.
Okay.
Which makes them all evil racists. Even the Asian and black authors and artists. They're all horrible racists for wanting no politics in their comic books. So people want to cancel Keanu Reeves for hiring a Japanese artist who doesn't want anti-Trump messages in a fucking Hulk comic book.
Okay.
So I don't do this normally, but since Keanu Reeves is a good dude, everyone loves him, and he's always nice. If you got a couple bucks, donate to his comic book because it pisses off people.
Yeah. But he didn't do 4 rooms. Selma did 4 rooms, right? Wasn't she in 4 rooms?
Yes. Selma did do 4 rooms.
Yeah.
As did Alicia Witt, lovely redhead. I like redheads.
Who doesn't? Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I'm not.
Doesn't like redheads.
Yeah, the whole cancel thing. I don't. That I'm not down with. Yeah, that's not one I'll tiptoe around. I think the solution for ideas we dislike is better ideas. I'm a real meat in the ring kind of a guy, you know. And I'm all about, you know, doing battle with ideas. I think is a far better way than to try to suppress those, because they're coming back. You know what I mean? If you don't defeat an idea with a better idea, then it's just going to keep coming up and keep coming up and keep coming up.
There are rare instances where I'm on board with canceling someone. Chase, I can't think of his full name, an actor from a show The Wire. He also did a movie with Keanu Reeves, The Replacements. He, I believe he should have been canceled. He murdered his wife in front of his 6-year-old, and he's now serving life in prison. I'm not a fan of casting him in movies.
He's serving his life in prison. You know what I mean? And I guess what I mean in canceling is the whole.
Yeah. Roseanne made a tweet making fun of someone who looks like she was a Tim Burton cast member, and they canceled her from her own show for being racist.
Yeah, you know, and when you've signed a contract, if they've got like some kind of ethics clause or what have you in your contract, and they want to exercise that as a private business, knock them out. The thing that drives me is, for example, if someone's going on a university campus to speak and people don't like them, and they try to get them pushed off the campus. They want to cancel the event, and I don't want the event. And if you're going to hold it, it can't be here. And I think that's especially dangerous in a place where your ideas should be challenged constantly, daily. If you are in university and your ideas are not challenged on a daily basis, someone's not doing their job. If they're creating an environment where it just supports what you already want to believe, then again, someone's not doing their job. The idea, even if you have better ideas, those ideas need to be forged in fire, so to speak. They have to be pressure tested, so that you learn deeply your own ideas and what's behind those ideas, and that you learn effectively to communicate those ideas. And you don't do that ever in a padded room with luxury, being surrounded by luxury, and in safe spaces. Obviously, a space needs to be safe to where you're not concerned with, being physically assaulted. But ideas should be, even good ideas should be assaulted. Especially good ideas should be assaulted so that those ideas can be stronger and withstand that heat. And that's the kind of canceling I'm talking about that I dislike. I don't like bullying someone out because you don't like what they have to say, when that's a perfect opportunity to express to that person why you don't like their ideas, and you will lose is the reality, because
if a school wants to.
If the school,
I have a tendency of talking.
No, that's good.
If a school is going to cancel someone or remove someone for their political or religious beliefs, then that school should not, cannot, and will not get any money from the government. No funding, no federal financial aid, no nothing. You either are a public school or you're not a public school. This whole, well, we're partially private. Okay, if you're private, then you're private. No financial aid for you. And as for these social media platforms, this might be controversial. Susan is the CEO of YouTube. Now, you are a private platform, and you can absolutely ban anyone you want. Absolutely, 100%. Which is why, Susan, you need to go ahead and accept that you do not get Article 230 protection from lawsuit, because you're not a platform. When you edit people and you remove people for their ideology, you are now a publisher. You are not a platform. You are not Madison Square Gardens. You are not the city clerk issuing permits. You are now the New York Times, and you can be sued for defamation. Pick one, because the straddling of the fence and going both ways is cheating. It's against the spirit of the law. It violates First Amendment. Just pick one.
Sure.
Pick one. I have been canceled twice, once by the right and once by the left. And both times, it was stupid and it was wrong. I gave a fucking speech. And yes, I was a theater major in college the first time. And I gave a speech in, I forget the name of the class, but it was, you had to pick a contemporary speech, something from the something older than 100 years that can apply to current issues. And this was not long after 9/11.
Okay.
And I chose the "Give me liberty or give me death." You you cry for peace, you demand peace, but I say the British are at our doors. They are killing our sons.
Mm-hmm.
You cry for peace, we cannot have peace. Now, whether I'm right or wrong, I gave a solid speech.
Sure.
It pertained to, and people were like, yeah, he needs to be removed from the classroom, blah, blah, blah. And the professor stood up for me. He said no. And they fucking had mass walkouts. Anytime I gave a speech or had to present a paper, the class would get up and walk out. Mass walkouts, because how dare I? Yeah. And it's like, okay, good. All that means is you have nothing to say to me other than, oh, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum and run away. That means I win. The other time I was fired from my one and only job, working for a church, back when I thought I was going to be a minister. Been a while. I refused to baptize a child. He was 12. His parents were Seventh-day Adventists.
Mm-hmm.
No shame, no hate. You do you. I refused to baptize a kid without his parents' permission. Wouldn't want someone to baptize my kids in a church I didn't believe in unless they asked me. So I asked, They said no, refused it, got fired. And not only was I let go from my job as a youth minister, I was dragged. They attacked me in many, many ways. And it's one of the big reasons why I converted. But yeah, it was being canceled for doing what I thought was right. Whether you agree with me or not, that's awful. You could have tried to plead your case and explain to me why you feel it's so important, and I can tell you why I feel it's so important. No, instead it's just, we're not going to use you anymore, and the next 8 sermons are all going to be about how you are a coward. Really, I'm the coward.
Yeah. I think it's just bad, and I know, YouTube is a private company, publicly held, but I mean, they're a private company, and they can do anything they want. But again, just like I talked about earlier in politics and certain things being a bad strategy, I still think just the canceling part is just bad strategy, because, like I said, if you don't like Ben Shapiro, for example, I mean, I know he was one who would I don't remember if he had an issue on YouTube, but I know he's had issues at universities.
Right.
Then you have an opportunity to express to him, or in another venue, if it's videos or something of that nature, what you disagree with. And if you're face to face with him and you're an 18-year-old or 22-year-old college student, the reality is you're going to lose the exchange, because this is what the guy does for a living. It's like heckling the comedian. You think you're going to get the best of this guy, but he's waiting for shit like that. And he gets it every night. And he's doing, 2 and 3 shows a night. He's going to eat you for breakfast. You're going to lose, but in losing that particular exchange with a guy who's primed for this sort of thing, you're going to learn a huge amount. You're going to learn how did he best me in that? Did he evade the issue? Did he,
you sitting there, you feel strongly about the Muslim Brotherhood being funded in schools, and I go up to Ben Shapiro and I'm telling him why they should be, and he destroys me. You're watching this from your mosque or from your house with your buddies. and you see the argument, and now you're talking with each other about it, and you're addressing it, and it's a flow of ideas. Whether you like it or don't like it, you're learning.
Exactly.
And you get the option to choose.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's bad policy, whether we're talking about YouTube or whether we're talking about a university campus or or Venmo, Vimeo, whatever it is, whatever the platform,
right?
Or whether it's a virtual platform like a video thing like that, or whether it's Spotify and podcasts, or whether it's live speeches on college campuses or not on college campuses, or what have you. I just think it's bad policy to cancel rather than confront. I think confrontation is always simply a superior strategy, if nothing else, for all those reasons, than to simply remove someone's voice, because they're going to have that voice. You're not really stopping them from speaking. You're stopping.
All you do is you remove them from the conversation that's happening here. Now they're going to go have that conversation elsewhere.
Yeah, and you're not going to be there for it. And now you can't confront their ideas. So not only do they not get proper pushback from for their ideas, but you don't have the learning experience of testing your ideas in the ring, as it were. And I just think that's crucial. I think it's robbing students of the opportunity to really exercise, not to let them exercise power that really isn't theirs, that isn't going to fly once they are removed from the ivory towers, as it were. But you've robbed them of an opportunity to learn to articulate those ideas, to learn to confront people in high stress situations. That alone can't be overstressed or overstated. The ability to maintain composure under pressure. It's exactly why so many people don't like public speaking. Well, you don't have to like it, but you better get good at it. And the biggest reason is because they don't know how to handle the adrenal response. And if they learn,
force kids, you had to get up and read, and kids would cry. I mean, we're not talking elementary school, like seniors in high school crying out of fear. And one thing it taught me was empathy. I love karaoke. I love it, and I'm bad at it. And I love to go see other people that are bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fantastic. It's exhilarating. It's awesome. Yes. You're scared of heights? Go skydiving.
Yeah. Climb a tree.
Do not go bungee jumping, though. Have you been bungee jumping?
I have not. I have a son who went, but I have not. I'm terrified of heights. Actually, I used to do roofing back in the days before I was
paying my way
with this thing, and so when I did roofing, I did a lot of going out on the edge and just dealing with my sheer panic. Just kind of
people that are good at karaoke too.
What's that?
I said I do enjoy people that are good at karaoke as well. One of the comments.
I'm actually not good at karaoke. It's a completely different. It may surprise people, but karaoke is a radically different musical experience than walking up on stage with this and doing the same thing, because you can't control the band.
Right.
If I went up and I went with a friend of mine. Several friends of mine, actually. I think there were several of us the night that I actually went up on the stage, and I went up and I said, well, I think I had just done a gig, and I often end with Sam Cooke's "Bring It On Home to Me," and so they were like, no, he has the song, go up and do that song, but I couldn't get the band to do what I needed them to do because it's a pre-record. I'm like, or I couldn't play it and slow it down and. Right. Whatever. I'm like, this is weird. Like, it's just, like a straight backing track and no one to look at and like give me two bump bump. Yeah, I can't do any of that. So it's a really bizarre.
Sweet Caroline in karaoke.
Yeah, yeah.
Always awful because I don't know if it's still just a Boston Red Sox thing or not, but the bump bump bump, like,
yeah,
it's a seventh inning stretch song for the Red Sox. So it's like tradition for New Englanders to like they add. It's like a fucking going to watch Rocky Horror in the movie theater. You're gonna be lost if you don't get it. And so yeah, maybe just I've been around too many New Englanders because you do Sweet Caroline and I expect the crowd to jump in and go bah bah. It's like
times never seem so good. Yeah, yeah, you gotta get the you gotta pound that.
But man, talking about debating ideas, California. California isn't the worst place ever. It's just the large cities in California I detest. Really? Sorry. California has two laws on the books that they're trying to push through. First one is 209. Proposition 209 is going to end affirmative action.
Okay.
End the ban on affirmative action, right?
Okay.
And there are two schools of thought on this, right? One being it's extremely racist towards Asians. Because Asians have sued various universities because universities are using they're adding to test scores based on your race. If you're black, you're 30, you're 26 on the SAT, on the ACTs becomes a 31. And if you're Asian, you're 26 on the ACTs becomes a 26.
Okay.
And it's like, that's not fair. I'm from the same community. I live in Baltimore. He lives in Baltimore. We're both poor. We're both blah, blah. Like, this is racist against me. And the argument is for Proposition 209 is these communities, these racial identities or sexual identities, these boxes that you can check show that you have been abused by the system and you need extra help. Now, I understand the feelings behind it. I disagree, but that's because I'm a cold-hearted person. I believe in equality as opposed to equity. I believe in fairness as opposed to whatever it is they're pushing now. I don't like affirmative action at all.
Okay. So you're okay with doing away with it?
Right. I think it should have been done away with. I don't think it ever should have happened. I think the proper way to go about is incentivize diversity, not require diversity.
Okay. Incentivize diversity based on what sort of diversity are we?
Our president, whether you like him or not, he's our president. He gave the biggest bump to funding for historically black colleges ever.
Sure.
That I approve of. Now, giving a tax break to companies for hiring black people, I'm against. You're incentivizing picking someone out based on their race. No. That's, you want to help someone, you're not going to do so by making requirements. I think funding black colleges, that yes, it is not fair for a job to single someone out for their race. It's not fair for a public university to single someone out for their race. That being said, if there's a historically black college or a historically Native American college or a historically white college or a historically Catholic college, something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it absolutely should exist. And I am absolutely on board with those schools not having to pay taxes or them being open to donations and whatnot. Now, should taxes go to them? No. My tax money should not fund anyone that singles out based on race. Just as businesses should not get incentivized. But historically black colleges or scholarship funds, yes. That's good. That is picking people up as opposed to singling people out.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, and I may not, so you would not be okay. You would be okay with putting funding in for education, but once one is in the marketplace, or let me restate, you would be okay with using race, for example, or religion for another example, as a metric by which you would allocate funding at the educational level, but you would not be okay with those same metrics once one is in the marketplace. You wouldn't want to incentivize, or I'm sorry, you wouldn't want to mandate a certain percentage of females or particular racial groups or particular religious groups or something of that nature. Is that do I understand you correctly with that?
Yes, with one caveat.
Okay.
Public schools cannot single out. See, Berkeley saying we need this many females, this many blank catosexuals, and this many Aboriginal Australians is wrong.
Okay.
Whereas, hey, I'm starting a school for Aboriginal Australians, and the government going, all right, we're not going to tax you, and we're going to allow federal financial aid. So your students can get their tuition paid for with financial aid, because that's based on an individual level, right?
Okay.
Like, you get financial aid, I get financial aid based on my income, my parents' income.
Okay.
Nothing else.
So my question then would be, if you are looking at, let's say you then get into the market and let's say you're Mormon, and so you've started a business, you've started a cleaning business, and you're only hiring from the church. So you'd be okay with that as long as they're not saying they're hiring only from the church, or are you not okay with that at all? You think they would have to have...
I'm okay with that business saying I'm only going to hire black Ethiopians. I'm fine with that. But what I'm not fine with is the government setting mandates of all cleaning businesses must hire this many Ethiopians. Ethiopian is not a reference to black people. It's a prior topic we talked about Eastern and Western African culture, for anyone that jumped in.
Yeah. Which we didn't really get into the topic, but that can be a pretty big topic. So you would be okay with, I guess here comes the rub. So would you be okay with a business who says, I'm only hiring people who are white?
As long as you put it on your front door, as long as it's publicly not made public. If you have a bakery that will not make custom cakes for homosexual couples for their wedding,
fair enough.
I'm okay with that. As long as you put on the front door, we do not make custom. We do not. We support this. We don't approve of that. So go elsewhere. I'm okay with that because I'll go to that business, I'll see that sign and go, oh, you won't make a custom cake for a gay couple? You know what? I'm going to get my wedding cake somewhere else. But awesome. Have a great day.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But the government is different from Bob's Bakery.
Sure. So I just, because the reason I ask is because this conversation came up before, and I asked,
well, you have to play devil's advocate. Otherwise,
sure. Well, what I was saying, would it be okay with, because if it's so if we're, if we're talking about race, for example, and it's okay to, for a white-owned business to hire only white people. And the answer was no. Well, what about a black-owned business hiring only black people? Well, yeah, that would be okay because it's different. So I didn't know if you had a caveat in that particular way, or if it was, or for example, with the wedding cake thing. So I didn't.
That would be a hypocritical idea. The whole concept of no, you can single out races unless you're singling out this race is the same thing as the other side of being. They're both racist thoughts. Just one's racist with good intentions, one's racist with bad intentions. It's still racist.
Okay. Strictly speaking, because it's a view based on race, so that would, by definition, I think maybe the obvious pushback would be, but this is a protected class, and because it's a protected class, that then by default it has a legal caveat. That's not a compelling argument for you?
No, because protected class. Okay, you're protected. Protected from who? By who? We're all protected from each other, from physical and violence and whatnot, by the government. And if you live in a state that allows you to have a gun, protected by yourself, or or good Samaritan bystanders. No, yes, you're protected by discrimination from the government.
Okay.
The government needs to back the fuck up. When the government is saying anything about one race versus another, it better be medical, or else stay the fuck out of it.
So you
actually stay out of medical stuff anyways, but
sure.
I got a soft spot when it comes to race and medicine.
Okay, so I guess then the question would be then, so you're the whole Civil Rights Act then, in the way it was, if not in theory, but at least in how it was exercised by creating protected classes and things of that nature,
it was needed.
So you're okay with it, or you think there should have been a sunset clause?
Well, it was needed. It's not needed now.
Okay.
Also, look at who signed that bill. Horrible racist. No, Maker's Mark is not sponsored, but I give approval to Maker's Mark. Anyone that's drinking Jack Daniels to the stream, please pour it out and find a real drink.
Are you also drinking Makers? Is that why you're? I guess I
am not drinking Jack.
Gotcha.
I am drinking very cheap benchmark bourbon made by McAfee's, good old Kentucky company that also makes Heaven Hill.
There you go. Okay. I'm still working on my Makers there, but yeah, well, that I think there's certainly I think there's a lot of fertile territory to explore in that position. I don't know that I'm the person to deeply explore that, but that's I think there's a lot of
questions.
I think that could be a really interesting conversation as far as whether any Civil Rights Act should look the same now as it looked 50 years ago.
Now, this is the part that offends people. So I'll jump in on that. Same-sex marriage.
Okay.
Barack Obama voted against it. Barack Obama openly spoke out against it, as did Hillary Clinton, as did George W. Bush, as did Joe Biden.
Yep.
Oddly enough, the only one that was openly for it that I can think of on the big stage like that was Dick Cheney.
On
legalizing same-sex marriage. While he was vice president, he was campaigning for same-sex marriage while the president was campaigning against it.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was campaigning for it. I know
his daughter is a lifelong partner. He was petitioning the state of Maryland to legalize it while the president was going against it.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was petitioning. I mean, I know about his daughter. I didn't realize.
Right, and because he didn't want to make it public. He didn't want to make it. He did not want to bring attention to her. Sure. Like, just like John McClane's black daughter. No one really talked about her.
Oh, I didn't. I was not aware of.
Yeah, he didn't want to bring her out in the campaign trail. He has a black daughter from Indonesia. She had a horrible palate issue, and he adopted her from an orphanage. And when she was like 18 months old, she was like 20, 21 when he ran for president.
Oh, wow.
And because she has a lot of scarring, and two, people would immediately be like, "Hey, you got a black kid."
Sure. Yeah, I think also in as far as anybody running in the 21st century, Ron Paul ran, what was it, 2008, 2012, or was it 2012, 2016? I think it was 2008.
2016, his crappy son, who got his ass beat in a pumpkin patch, ran for president.
Yeah, he did. So it was 08 and 12. Ron Paul supports. Actually, he supports it by way of removing marriage from government's business at all. That there shouldn't be
which is where I've come to. I am there now. I like that Canada, the whole time Canada was going, and it's rare for Canada to get anything right, but Canada was like, why does anyone fucking care?
Yeah.
Well, tax benefits. Oh, we don't get tax benefits for being married.
For being married or not married, and
yeah,
and there's other legal repercussions as well. But I think the from and I don't want to speak for Dr. Paul, but if I understand his position correctly, it was simply that
you're incentivizing marriage.
Well, marriage is a private contract. I mean, nobody likes to think of it that way, but that's exactly what it is in terms of legally speaking. It's a legal contract between two individuals.
Right.
And he said that the government doesn't, shouldn't have anything to do with contracts other than the enforcement of contracts. Giving permission to have a contract, I mean, obviously, the SEC or something, if you're talking, megacorps and coming merging or something of that nature are going to have some things to say about it. Although certainly one might argue that they shouldn't have something to say about it. But that aside,
monopolies requires government intervention. Me selling you a car, does it really?
Sure. So I think he just said get government out of it, and so the de facto position was that he would support anything if you wanted to have a private contract, because he supports contract rights. Which again, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to speak for any individual or a particular political party, but I thought it very interesting that while Republicans tend to have co-opted the term libertarian, it was actually, if you look back and start going, well, who supported this first? The Libertarian Party actually supported same-sex marriage before there even was a Green Party, and certainly before anybody who was Republican or Democrat openly supported it. But they supported it in that way, in that it should be removed from government control to begin with. So regardless,
I'm just throwing the logo up. That's why it changed.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I was just making that point because I don't think it was only Dick Cheney. Because I recall Ron Paul being openly asked about that. I don't remember what his son said.
Ron Paul was kind of in the background. I mean, on a national level, congressmen generally aren't famous. I mean, especially in that conversation. But yeah, I did not mean to imply that Dick Cheney was the only one. I just meant in the when it comes to people, presidents, vice presidents.
Sure.
Man, the only one who has not previously voted on the subject was Donald Trump. And I know this is going to piss people off, but Donald Trump, he was giving his same-sex couple employees marriage benefits in the late 80s.
Oh, well, good for him. That's as well he should. I'm
not going to pretend it's for moral reasons. I think it was just he wanted to keep his good employees.
Sure, or for whatever his motivations were. But yeah, well, and I guess also for equal time, because you'd mentioned I was siding on the Republican side, I guess, for equal time in the 08 and 012 and 12.
Ron Paul's never been a Republican.
What's that now?
Ron Paul's never been a Republican, just like Bernie Sanders has never been a Democrat.
Well, sure, but he was running. He was running in that. But on the other side of the aisle, Dennis Kucinich, I think, very openly supported that. I think, and in fact, he may well. I'd have to go back and look at that, but Kucinich may well have been the very first Democrat to openly support that. And just as another aside, I thought Kucinich got just about the worst treatment from his own party.
Until Tulsi Gabbard.
Until Tulsi Gabbard, yeah. Or Bernie, for that matter. For Bernie, I think Bernie kind of, whether he would have won in 16 or not, he certainly got. I think it's. Maybe it's still a debatable topic, but it certainly seemed from where I was sitting like he got robbed.
Yeah.
But
well, those email leaks prove that.
Yeah, I think Kucinich really got a rough go of it on his side, and just as I thought Paul had a rough go of it on his side. I always said back then that regardless of which side of the aisle someone may be on, it would have been far more interesting a policy discussion to see a Kucinich versus Paul, for example. Or even the last cycle, much more to see a Bernie versus a Rand Paul would be a much more interesting policy discussion rather than the circus sideshow that I feel like we ended up with in terms of not only the people left at the top of the heap, but the way the media covered it. Because I don't think there was any amount of media manipulation that would have forced a Paul versus Bernie out of a policy discussion, because those guys like to discuss policy. I mean, they want to get down and dirty in discussing policy, not in discussing someone's hairstyle or the shoes they're wearing or what they do for Christmas or not, or whatever other things people are going to get into. I don't see Bernie, trying to dig up trash on Rand and, how many women he was sleeping with during his college years or some such shit. And I don't see Rand doing that sort of thing towards Bernie. I may be being overly generous. Maybe they're both assholes. And they would rather go that route than policy. But I think it would be much easier or not much easier. I just think it'd be more interesting to see real policy discussion, because we never really get that. We get, hints at policy, and then a lot of grandstanding and attacking people's character rather than attacking their policies. So, but that's just me. I'm just a guitar
To
player.
continue on shitting on California, I would like to bring up California SB 145.
Okay.
It is a partisan bill. I just learned about it recently. It's fairly new. It just passed the last roll call on the 20th of August. So here it is on Legiscan for anyone that wants to fact check me here. It is, they want to decriminalize underage intercourse amongst same-sex couples. The argument for it is, and I'm going to try to put aside any biases I have here. The argument for it is that many gay kids are kicked out of their home and live on the streets, and they have to move in with their boyfriends or girlfriends, and that puts people in a dangerous position where they are now guilty of statutory rape, where a straight person would not experience that same difficulty. Therefore, legalizing adult people fornicating with same-sex children would eliminate that discrimination that exists by the awful system.
Okay. And the argument against?
Well, I wasn't going to argue against yet. I was going to just present that, because if I started on the arguing against, then it's just going to turn into me ranting. I do not support this policy for various reasons, but I'll defer to you for your initial reaction to this.
Well, my initial reaction is that I don't. I'm not the biggest fan of isolating particular group based on any isms, as we were saying, and then giving special treatment to that group. I think if you see that as a problem, if you see homelessness disproportionately impacting underaged
homosexual.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm thinking further down the train track.
I thought you were trying to figure out what label to use so you don't get canceled.
Oh yeah. No. I
just go clinical.
Yeah. No, I was running further down the train tracks there, but yes. So I think if you see that as a problem, and if it really is a problem, and if you can demonstrate factually that that's a bigger issue that faces gay kids disproportionately to anyone else, then I think there are a range of solutions that would behoove everyone to look at, and I don't know that most certainly wouldn't be my go-to. I think I would ask in terms of like what underage, how much. I mean, we're talking down to 16, we're talking down to 14, we're talking down to 12. I mean, what's I'm sure there must be some sort of, they're not just going to open that up across the board,
right?
And I'm sure there must be some other parameters hinging that in.
Right. Just that from what it said, the way the law is, because we are at risk of pulling a New York when we go with the intention of the law without the actual law. Whatever your stance on abortion is, people argued, no, the New York abortion bill did not say you can give birth to a child and then abort it. No,
Sure.
the law did say that. It's not what the law intended, but it fucking said it.
Okay.
So, yes, let's not get so caught up in the intention that we forget what the law actually says. Decriminalizing statutory rape, not sexual abuse, sexual assault, but statutory rape amongst same-sex partners.
Okay.
The argument is, well, it's not legalizing rape or assault. It's just consensual. We're taking away the age of consent for same-sex interactions. Dude, there's danger
there must be some age limit on that, though. I mean, they wouldn't be okay with a 40-year-old man with a 12-year-old. If they are, they've written a very sloppy law. Would be my first reaction to that.
Okay. The age, let's see. Penal code relating to sex offenders, public. Oh, with no more than 10 years age difference. So a 19-year-old and a 10-year-old is legal.
Yeah, I think they would do better. What's the old half your age plus 7 thing? Remember that one? That used to be thing. I think that'd be a better way to, because then the 20-year-old would be 17 or
I would say a smart way to put it would be, if you are old enough to drive, you're old enough to give consent for same-sex coupling, or if you're old enough to decide who would get custody in a divorce, you're old enough to decide who you should live with. I'm not saying I like either of those. I'm saying those are better wordings than 10 years, because a 9-year-old could do this, and that's wrong. And so my argument against it, other than it's a sloppy written law, I don't care how sloppy the law is written. I don't like the law. I don't like the law because, one, you're singling out same sex. No, that's discrimination. And the whole argument of you can't discriminate against heterosexual. Yes, you can. Look up the word discrimination. All right. Number two, if the problem you're trying to solve is homeless, gay kids being kicked out of their house, living on the streets, how about we address the gay kids living on the streets?
Exactly. Well, yeah,
why don't we make it so that if you kick your kid out of the house, then the kid can fucking go to the police department and go, hey, my parents kicked me out. This is my age. And the police go, hey, why'd you kick him out? Well, you're contractually obligated, blah, blah, blah. Now you owe him child support. That seems like a better solution. And let's take the out of it. I don't want the government ever stepping in on sex other than protecting underage people or unwilling people. That's it. That's the only sex the government has any say in.
Yeah, it seems an odd law when they're saying that, because it seems to be implying they wouldn't be sexually engaging with an adult if not for the fact that they're homeless, which means immediately that that's a coercive scenario. So they're not really doing it completely freely. They're motivated outside of that for a place to live and things of that nature. So it seems a bad solution to a bad problem and not very well thought through. That's my initial reaction without reading the legislation myself or the proposed legislation myself.
Right.
It seemed.
I'm new to legislation. I'm just, from what I can gather. Now, someone can probably correct me and say, no, what they intend is, okay, cool, don't care.
Yeah.
I disapprove.
Sure.
So I will be called, or would be called, homophobic on this one.
Why? That doesn't strike me as a valid retort, even if someone disagrees with the positioning. This isn't about,
because no one's going to hear the specifics. They're just going to hear the law is going to be let's see, I'm just going to do a random test here. My assumption is that, okay, everyone supports drug reform, right? Everyone does.
Okay.
For the most part. But when someone says, marijuana, we want to legalize marijuana, then the political opponent is going to run ads saying, my opponent is soft on crime. They want to let this many criminals go.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So
clearly you just want poor gay kids on the street.
So I'm going to just test, and I could be proven wrong because I am doing this live and uncensored. Here's Google. I put in California SB 145. Now, I read the bill, and my understanding is I stated the intention, and I stated the wording. How is Google going to interpret this? Okay. Oh, there we go. And California Senate passes Wiener's legislation to end. Okay. Why the bill is misguided and unnecessary. Lawmakers pass bill addressing LGBT discrimination. And no, I'm not adding the Q. And then you can see where I pulled it up from actual just blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that's showing or not. And so my assumption is someone would frame this as, there we go, end discrimination against LGBT youth in sex offender registry. So that's how I believe it would be framed. So-and-so spoke out against ending discrimination against same-sex couples. No. Whereas I would run an ad against my opponent, so-and-so okayed a bill to allow 9-year-olds to bang adults.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how they say it's discrimination against.
Well, because
I don't even understand.
A 16-year-old, everyone can agree, a 16-year-old sophomore in high school, right? Okay. Gets kicked out of his parents' house, and his boyfriend, who's a senior in high school, who happens to be 18, right? He has good, decent, understanding parents who allow his boyfriend to stay the night a couple times.
Okay. Sure.
And
we'll move into the basement or whatever.
That's awful. We can all agree that's bad.
Yeah.
Now, if they have the same genitals, then it would no longer be a crime.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the argument for. And they're not wrong. It shouldn't be a crime, and it is a problem of less of a problem every day that non-straight kids are kicked out of their home.
Sure.
And I would love to address that problem. I just think they're addressing the wrong end of it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. When you just put a static age on it, and you're talking about people underage, then when you, yeah. I mean, because to say 10 years suddenly, and they were probably thinking in terms of 25 and 15 or 16,
right,
as opposed to 19 and 9, or 18 and 8.
But it's just like, we can't address a real problem because of bullshit.
Sure. Well, that's what we were. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, because it gets politicized immediately. So you can't have an exchange. You can't even have the exchange we had, where we're asking questions about, what about this and about that, and trying for clarification. Because if you ask for clarification from, then you're part of the problem, I guess. I don't know, and that's unfortunate, because neither side can then get clarification from the other side, because you have to assume that they're just wrong and stupid, or Nazis or fascists or something, and so to ask for clarification from a Nazi makes you a Nazi, or to ask clarification from an idiot makes you an idiot, or whatever. So and that's unfortunate. I mean, that's a feature of the social landscape now, that's terribly unfortunate. It's been that way for a while, I guess, but it just seems to me that over the past decade or two, it's on steroids now, in a way that
social media is very prevalent in how things are framed now.
Sure. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I remember people arguing back when I was a kid and a young adult, but by somewhere into the 21st century, it just seems like everything got put on steroids, and it made it very, very difficult to have a rational, calm conversation. And you're certainly not allowed to change your mind on anything. I remember when a friend of mine years ago, and he's very much on the sort of health food side of, this and that. And when he came out and said, "Wait a minute, man, I've been reading and this whole thing with Frankenfoods, because that's not so much of an issue now. It was like,
I love GMOs, for the record.
What's that now?
I love GMOs, for the record.
Yeah, well, but he had been very against them, and that whole community is very against them. And he started reading a bunch on it, and he said, this is not as crazy as it sounds, and I think that we need to rethink this. And he just got lambasted by people rather than people on his own side saying, okay, is there a piece of information I don't have? Why do you say that? It seems like a really bad idea to me, but no one had a conversation. It just
tried to outlaw it.
What's that now?
I lived in Washington State when they tried to outlaw it, and I heard all the stuff, and I'm like, fuck GMOs. Oh man, maybe I should. And then a fucking chemist whom I love and respect, whom is from Nigeria. I was talking about Nigeria earlier. Sorry. Nigeria, not Nicaragua. Nicaragua's the sprinter. I talk about a lot of people.
Yeah.
He spoke up, and he goes, "No, this is why it's amazing. This is the facts behind it. This is why it's important." And I was just like, I was so wrong. I'm such an idiot. But if I tried to reach out to the people that shared my opinion previously and went, "Hey, actually, look at this," I would have been shot in the head and buried in a mass grave amongst everyone else in social media who dares to disagree.
Yeah, well, and it's very unfortunate, because I remember seeing just how he got slaughtered by friends and neighbors, and just thought, wow, that's crazy. No one even asked him why. I shouldn't say no one, but the vast majority did not ask why. That was what led to your change of opinion. What facts do you think that I don't have that you now do have that would sway me as well? No one found that out. I mean, they just countered, and they don't even know what they're countering, and they countered mostly with just attacks, rather than, again, they weren't attacking the the topic or the rationale behind it. They just attacked him. And I was like, wow, I don't think it would have been that way, 20 years ago. Maybe I'm wrong, just just like we were talking earlier. And I said, maybe it was always, things were always that racist, for example. And I was just blind to it, being a 6-year-old or 12-year-old or whatever, growing up in different places. Maybe I just suddenly noticed it at a certain age when I hadn't seen it before. So maybe it's the same, maybe people were always that polarized and always just attacked people instead of having a reasoned conversation and asking for more information. But it just seems to me, from where I'm sitting at present, that that problem has amplified significantly over the past couple of decades.
It ties into my soon-to-be famous Baltimore basketball speech. I want to point out first, though, I apologize. I know you notice I keep looking at my phone. I know that's rude. I have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic, badass rock star daughter.
Yes.
Is in the process of traveling. So she's on a road trip now from Arizona to your lovely state of Kentucky to go see her grandparents. So I'm not tweeting or anything. It's, for the record.
Sure.
But yeah, my famous Baltimore basketball speech. Soon to be famous. Spread the word. I lived in Baltimore and we played basketball. I made a video about it. It's the super racist Korean. And what we did was we played basketball and we would shit talk. That's what we did.
Sure.
And if you were overly sensitive and you got offended by everything, people didn't want to play with you anymore. They're just like, yeah, he's got next. Fuck you, whiny bitch. Mm-hmm. Every time I shoot a 3 on you, you storm off. Fuck off, little bitch.
Yeah.
And then if you're such a fucking asshole, if you're way too mean, they're like, fuck you, man. I'm not playing with you. You said that about my fucking grandmother who's in a wheelchair. No, fuck off. I don't want to play with you. You had to find that balance because what you did and what you said had an immediate reaction.
Sure.
Whereas now you get on Call of Duty or modern war games. God, I'm old. And I think I got that one wrong. And you're like, well, your diabetic grandmother can eat sugar or something possibly worse. Maybe you said bad words like shit and poop. And they're like, fuck you, blocked. You just click on a button and you're in another fucking room because you have the entire world connected. There is no punishment for being a crybaby, overly sensitive, or being an awful, horrible human being. No punishment. Plus, people would get their ass kicked on the basketball court.
Yeah.
And there's people that never had that. And as for the racist Korean part, and please, everyone, check out my video. Pyong-hoon Kim, one of my dear friends, in Baltimore, I hung out. My best friend is Filipino and Korean. I hung out in that group. And a soldier came back with his Korean wife. It happens a lot. And his Korean stepkid who spoke no English. And it's just like, hey, Korean, Filipino, hey, Asian kids, come here. Play with them. That one speaks Korean. That one speaks Filipino. By the way, there's 2 Filipino languages, all right? Not everyone, half the country speaks Cebuano, all right? Fuck you, Google. Yeah, Google Translate doesn't have Cebuano. 70 million people speak the language. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And that one, I think he's from Texas. But yeah, ignore the white kid. So we're eating ramen noodles. And playing Tecmo Super Bowl and playing basketball. And he picked up English real well. Baltimore is a mostly black area. And shit talking is very common. It's awesome. I love it. Black people, I would say used to, but no, still do. It is very common. And by the way, this is where everyone clips it and cancels me. It would be very common to say, nigga, please. Hey, back the fuck up, nigga. Check this out. Right? And
Okay.
I'm not a fan of those using that word, but that's what was said. And the reason why I actually say it's because, for context, Pyong-hoon, he picked it up. So he could shoot. Sucked at layups, right? He shoots a three-pointer, right? While this dude's covering him. And he goes, nigga in your eye.
Oh, boy.
And everyone is so furious. They're so mad. And, we got to split up a fight. And it's like, whoa. Hey, look, he doesn't know. He doesn't speak English. And we got to explain to him, no, you cannot say the N-word.
Yeah.
The N-word is bad. The N-word is what evil KKK, Klansman, racist, I want to kill all black people. It's a horrible thing. Never say it. Never, ever say it. Okay. The next day, fucking Pyong's going to shoot. This dude fucking blocks the ball. He's like, nigga, not in my house. Pyong slaps the shit out of him. No, you don't say that word.
Yeah.
Now we gotta fucking, like, dude, no. He's allowed to, but you're not allowed to. It was just and it seemed so crazy from his side. But yeah. It's a great story. Great video. It took me 3 times to get it to where YouTube did not delete it. But
oh, really?
But yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite stories. Usually kills in live rooms.
Yeah. Well, it would be. I mean, that'd be a difficult thing to try to. I mean, because when you're putting it in a cultural context,
right?
There are plenty of things. I'm sure I would miss if I was, sitting in Korea. Did you say he's from?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure if I went to Korea, there are plenty of those types of things I'd miss too.
Oh yeah.
That would seem equally crazy. But
can you eat with chopsticks?
Can I eat with chopsticks? Yeah.
My very beautiful, very attractive, fantastic female friend who's Asian can eat with chopsticks. Just want to point that out.
Okay.
She's watching. And if you're eating with chopsticks and you are in not Cantonese, but Mandarin area, and you drop your chopsticks, you just stick them in the bowl's rice where it's sticking straight up, that is extremely offensive. And especially in the Shenzhen province, it is very offensive, and you will have to apologize immediately because it symbolizes, something like I wish your grandmother dies or something.
Yeah, see, I would totally miss that.
Alan B, Google Translate has Cebuano. It just came out. Very wrong. Well, at least it fucking has it now.
There you go.
Alan. Oh. Yeah, we talked about cancel culture, and we addressed Amber Heard. She, I don't know if we addressed that online or not.
Who's Amber?
Amber Heard is Johnny Depp's ex-wife.
Okay, I'm familiar with Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah, she beat the shit out of him because he's a badass. She's from Texas, by the way. Don't fuck with Texas women; they'll beat your ass. God, I love Texas. But she beat his ass, almost cut off his finger, and then lied and said he abused her.
Okay.
He got fired from Pirates of the Caribbean. He got fired from various things. Apparently, it cost him $350 million when she lied on. And then in court recently, it has come out that there's proof that not only did she lie, she abused him, and she abused her sister, and she did a lot of bad stuff.
Okay.
Now, he was fired from his job. She is not being fired from Aquaman, big DC movie. Okay.
These are two different companies, though, correct?
Well, he's been fired from Warner Brothers as well as Disney, as well as Fox.
Okay.
Like, he got fired from a bunch of different stuff. He fucking quit making movies and became a rock star. He's on tour with Joe Perry and Alice Cooper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good stuff. He actually sings one of my favorite songs. They're All Dead.
Yeah, he also did a single with Jeff Beck. Yeah, that was really good.
But
I think it was Johnny did it. Maybe it wasn't Johnny who did. I'd have to go back and look at that now. I might be mistaken.
No, it's yeah, it's it was a nobody. Sorry,
but it was what is it? Is that Hollywood Vampires? Is that right? What is that?
Yeah, that's the name of the band.
Yeah, Cooper and Perry, and I forgot who they have on drums, and I think they had another guitar, or maybe I'm wrong, and a bass. I'm not sure who their rhythm section is, but yeah, they got Cooper and Joe.
Now, I don't believe she should be fired. I don't believe he should have been fired, especially because if you watch her in Friday Night Lights or All About the Jones, something about the Jones, David Duchovny movie, it looks pretty fantastic.
Okay, I've not seen her.
And she's not a bad actress, and I can watch her and be entertained.
Okay,
what she does in her house doesn't affect me. Likewise for him. As long as Tim Burton's not directing, he does a great job. And when Tim Burton's directing, it's 50-50. First half of the career, great. Second half, not so much. It's just canceling. Shit kills me.
So what do you think do you think she should be charged?
Well, she's about to lose a shit ton of money because she's got some lawsuits. She won't go to jail. She won't face criminal charges, but she's going to have to give back the $150 million she got in the divorce, plus a lot more.
Sure. I just didn't know what your thoughts are on filing a false.
Well, just my thoughts are, if Hollywood's going to cancel one for this, and then it turns out he's innocent, they should apologize. They won't.
No.
Maybe next time they won't be so quick to cancel the next person. And if either stop canceling people, or you have to cancel her, or else you're hypocrites, which we already know they are.
Yeah, and we're all probably guilty of that charge. I think in their case, however, it's when you make half of your career about money and the other half about moralizing to your audience, then you should definitely have some consistency in your moral stance if you're going to moralize. So I definitely think if they're gonna, if Warner's firing him and she's working for Warner, then Warner should fire her.
Which, I mean, the main reason why I put it on my script is because I have one of my dear close friends is a pink-haired, gender-fluid fucking socialist. One of my oldest and dearest friends who is obsessed with this case and was all on board to talk about it, and then got stage fright.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was supposed to be like, all right, when it's time, I'll shoot you a message, jump on, give a go-to about it. Stage fright. Real stuff.
Well, I mean, and I don't know anything other than, what you just said about the case, but, so maybe there's some nuance there that we're missing. It doesn't seem from, I mean, it sounds fairly open and shut, but, maybe there's something more going on, maybe if he was being, if she can say that he was being, mentally or psychologically abusive until she suddenly snapped and became physically abusive as a response to his psychological torment.
It just makes me think of Pete Rose and Babe Ruth.
You lost me on that. I'm not a baseball guy.
So Babe Ruth, drunk, wife beater, pervert, asshole, piece of shit.
I didn't know that.
Right. Because
learn something new every day.
Why would you? Who cares? Dude, hit a ball with a bat. Yeah.
Better than any of his contemporary peers. Yeah.
Now, Pete Rose is the greatest batter of all time. 4,000 hits, got on base something times. Something. Yay. Banned from baseball. Can't be in the Hall of Fame because he gambled.
Sure.
Okay. Now, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care about Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. I like Johnny Depp's acting and music. I like Amber Heard's acting and parts of her. But when you make a stand, oh, dude gambled, banned. Oh, okay. Then what's your stance? That means since you will not allow him in the Hall of Fame because you don't approve of gambling, that means you approve of Babe Ruth beating his wife.
Sure. Absolutely.
No. We don't. We're baseball. No. You just made it not baseball. You just made it your baseball skills plus how you are as a person. So, yeah.
Pick a lane. Yeah. I guess my question is, because I don't really know a whole lot about that situation either, was Pete betting on games that he was playing in?
All evidence points to probably not. What he says is no, and he wasn't a player at the time. He was a coach.
Okay. Oh, but he was coaching, but he was betting on
other
games that he was, and including betting on or betting against his own team.
He says he never bet on any games he played in.
Okay.
And there's evidence that he probably did not, because they found evidence that he did about other betting, but they never could find anything about him betting on games he was involved in.
Okay. Yeah, because I could see if they were making a statement in terms of him betting on games that he then was in a position to influence the outcome.
Next baseball.
But then you better like strike half the guys from the boxing Hall of Fame.
Pick one.
Yeah, and they're two different organizations, so they can certainly have two different standards, I suppose. So maybe that's a bad analogy or a bad reference in general. But if they can't prove that he was betting on any games that he could influence, where he could influence the outcome, then it seems.
If they can't prove he was cheating on the field, then they're punishing him for non-field stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that means you're approving Darryl Strawberry doing cocaine. Lots and lots of cocaine.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah. I guess the consistent thing to do would either be to allow him in if whoever makes such decisions deem him worthy of being in, and If not, you
Giamatti
really have to kind of
decided, actually.
What's that?
The amazing actor Paul Giamatti.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in so many things. The movie I think you should watch, that he was in, Cinderella Man, Russell Crowe movie.
Okay.
He played the corner man. Great actor. Did Sideways. He's done a bunch of shit. Anyways, famous actor. His dad was the baseball commissioner who banned Pete Rose.
Ah, okay.
Just side facts that no one cares about. But,
yeah. Yeah, it just seems like if they don't have proof that he bet on his games, and they're just pushing back against betting in general, then it certainly is a difficult position to say that we care more about domestic violence, for example,
exactly.
or illicit drug use than we do about betting, which stated that way seems absurd, I would think. And so the rational course of action, it would seem at that point, is either to remove anyone who had anything bad going on in their lives from the Hall of Fame, or let him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, that would seem to be the unless someone's prepared to put new evidence forth to demonstrate that he did in fact not only bet on games he could influence the outcome of, but actually influenced the outcome of. Because I don't even know that it's I see that it's a conflict of interest to bet on.
Right.
But if you just don't think your team has it and you bet against them, but you're still out there pushing 100%.
You can't prove that. And you should not bet on anything you're in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a fairly clear conflict of interest, I would think. They just, you've got conflict of interest in many industries, lawyers, for example. I mean, so it seems to me if he did that, it's a clear conflict of interest. But shy of that, it seems a little odd.
When you moralize, when you make a stand, and be consistent.
Sure.
I don't think I'm asking for much, but yeah.
Evidently you are.
Now, this is the point. Well, I do this at different points, but I would like to showcase a fantastic content creator. This is Real Talk Recovery with Nicole. Damn it. I asked you permission and you gave me permission. While doing that, I did not ask how to pronounce her last name. My apologies. Real Talk Recovery with Nicole Plutra. Or Pluter. Now, I know it's small on your screen, but non-judgmental, all-inclusive recovery. I absolutely have nothing but love and respect. And if you want to follow along with her story, I do like her playlist, right? She has her The Ugly Truth of Addiction, where it's a series about where she talks about opiate addiction. It's total probably 5 or 6 hours. And then she's got a good series about prison stories, because that is what happens with a lot of addicts.
Mm-hmm.
She does wonderful interviews. She talks about her relapses, because many people relapse often. And she talks about Suboxone, which I'm less familiar with. I've sort of fallen out of the addict community in a lot of ways. So there's new stuff. Fentanyl is new to me. I need to get back into it. But if anyone is struggling, you're going to fail a lot. And that's okay. Just get up, Dust yourself off. Do it again. Shit sucks. Please check out Real Talk Recovery with Nicole. Last name Pooter. Pluter. Plouter. Fuck. Sorry. But, bragging about that fucking channel that I'm obsessed with now. Been watching it, even though I don't have any substance issues. It reminds me of some really cool stuff that's been happening lately. I know you don't do a lot of YouTube. You don't follow a lot. My number one video is me being a whiny little crybaby about mental health. I was scared to do it. I kept trying and couldn't quite put it out. So I had a drink or 7, and I just opened up about my mental health. It was a very scary thing to do. It blew up. It got many thousands of views. My biggest video.
Good.
Made me very, very happy. I had 3 big, famous, like superstar YouTubers leave comments and share it. I had reaction videos. Like, it really felt good. Made me want to do less silly stuff and have more conversations, which led to live streams. But we remember how rough it was. Mental health was treated like weakness. I'm sure you have. I'm not gonna bring up any specifics, but I know you've had some breakups in the past that, and you're a parent and you're a musician. So clearly, there are things that happen, and not all of us are fortunate enough to have help. Because I'm old school and was kept away from the mental health aspect, I was a strong advocate of mentors, as is Denzel Washington. I had a mentor in the mid 2000s, Quentin. Great guy. Love you. He ended up falling off a wagon, and I ended up helping him. And if you remember Teenage Me, you were absolutely a huge mentor of mine. But not everyone gets that. Things got real serious real quick.
Yeah.
I know, being a musician, you've had, I've heard your stories, and I know you've had various people who were there that helped you and reached out, and you've had, I don't know if you called them mentors or not, but I know you've had mentors of the sense.
Yeah, I think mentors, or even just what's another word that maybe models, I guess, certain, like if you a lot of times, in the sort of self-help, for example, book writing community, that mentors usually means like that guy's who's a millionaire and he's going to teach you to be a millionaire. But having said that, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing to be able to look and say, okay, this person has it together, in the business aspect of things. So I need to use, I need to learn from that person and model certain behaviors in that area. And this person has it together in the physical arena. So I need to, use them as a model for these behaviors. And this person, mentally seems very strong and resilient and whatever. And so I need to learn from them. I think in that sense that it can be very important. And I probably have had so many, because that's kind of the way I approach a lot of things, that it would be almost impossible to even make a list off the top of my head, because there's so many. I mean, the reality is I wouldn't be doing what I do if it weren't for opportunities that others created for me, opened up doors, and I know the sort of the self-help approach to that would be, I worked my ass off and I made, and those doors open because but
no one did it on their own. Everyone, they learn from someone. Dude, chill.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, there've been a lot of people in a lot of areas, professionally and personally. And the odd thing is sometimes they didn't even know it. I mean, they're not always consciously aware, because you don't always approach that person and go, "Hey, man,"
I'm fairly certain I just kind of shocked you and dropped that one on you.
Yeah, you kind of did. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's important to be able to look at people and go, and sometimes it's very, temporally bound, and that maybe even a very short period of time, this person from the headspace I'm in or the life circumstance I'm in, this person is the exact person I need for these 3 days or for these 3 weeks or for these 3 months. And then they're not that person anymore, and that's okay also. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I've had a lot. I mean, I could start making a list, and it'd be a huge list. Just because I've been very fortunate, is the reality, to have always had people there to lean on.
I worry a little bit that our younger generation's interchangeable friends, because you don't bond with friends, you don't learn, you don't have to adjust your behavior, you can just click a button and replace people. That I worry that, and this is all speculation, but I worry that does cut out the mentor aspect. That I'm so blessed, and as you said, you're so lucky. And sorry to address the elephant in the room. George, fellow, I noticed him squirming. He was on his back. He's a male. He's a teenager. He has a ceramic turtle that he can climb on to play with.
Who's George?
This is George.
Oh, okay.
So in case you're wondering why I just scooted back and why I'm stroking my shirt to calm someone down, my teenage tortoise fell over while mounting his play toy.
Gotcha. Got you.
Also,
yes, there's George. Okay.
it is difficult to gender turtles or sex turtles. It's the same word. Grow up, people.
I think biologically the term would be sex, and then sociologically it would be gender, right? Is that how that?
People got offended by putting the word sex on things, so they came up with the word gender, so they didn't have to see the word sex on a form.
Yeah. Sure.
That's all it is. All right? Grow the fuck up, people.
Because God forbid we should say sex, right? Yeah.
But yes, it's difficult to gender them. I have seen his penis. and they are scary. Turtle penises are scary. And as I showed his shell, yes, he does. He's a teenager. And yes, I do have to clean his concrete friend. All right. I'm a good pet owner. No, George has a tendency of making a lot of noise. He knows how to get attention when he's hungry. So a lot of live streams, they're like, what is that noise? And it's like,
it's George.
Dr. Disrespect, whom I have never watched any of his live streams, is a professional video game player. Okay. Which is a thing, and it's actually kind of cool. He does a lot of first-person shooters, and he has his real name is Guy something French, very French name. His big thing is I'm 6'7", pure testosterone, 2-time something blah blah blah. Chuck Norris is scared of me, kind of very bluster.
Sure.
Bravado, like cartoony 1980s action star. He dresses that way. He acts that way. He has a character.
Uh-huh.
He got some controversy because he filmed in a bathroom. He was at some big convention, and he had a funny gag, like where he was standing at the urinal, and someone came in with the camera and went, "Hey, da, da, da." And he's like, "Hey, careful! You surprised me, and I drop it. I'll break the urinal off the wall," or some stupid joke. That's pretty much the only offensive thing he's really done.
Okay.
And people are just like, "Oh, what if someone was using that bathroom?" Gotcha. Well, he got banned from the video game YouTube, Twitch.
Okay.
Big deal. Dude had a multi-million-dollar contract. You know, he's got a wife. He's got probably kids. You know, it's his livelihood. And there's been a lot of media attention. Why'd you get banned? What did you do wrong? Da, 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 this and that. And he just shifted to YouTube and tried to just go on with playing video games. Well, he broke character. Yesterday, day before, and he openly spoke out about his anxiety and his mental health issues. And, you know, I've never, ever had self-doubt, confidence issues. I've never had anxiety. You know, I always played sports growing up. You know, when buzzer beater shots, I've always felt confident. You know, I'm always good to go. Win, lose, or fail, I'm on board. But this latest thing, you know, it threw me because reasons, blah, 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 who cares? I have anxiety. I'm struggling with this and that. And that, you know, that really touched me, that someone who's so world championship boxer Dillian White just got knocked the fuck out in a fight he was supposed to win.
Yeah.
Dude caught him in the 7th. He fucked up, right? He lowered his left, right, and leaned in before he threw that hook. And Russian boxer, fucking perfect uppercut and just boom, hit him on the button.
Yeah.
Dude came out and was like, "Yeah, I'm depressed. You know, my confidence is hurting. I'm struggling." The whole thing just has me just going, hope. Yeah. Because I think we've lost mentors. As a country, I mean, I think young males have lost mentors. And I think this might be might be something to counter that. You have sons.
Yes, it sounds. I think when people in who are large in a particular community like that come out and open up on those things, it's a good thing, because then it destigmatizes, because it was such a thing for so long, and it's nice to see, whether it's those guys or Hollywood stars or whatever come out and say things, then it opens the door so other people can have those conversations, not necessarily publicly, but they can seek help if they feel like they need help, without feeling like that means that they're weak or they're less than or they're whatever. Because it's crazy to me that one can work on their physical health, for example, and they can work on their and they can celebrate it, and they can work on their financial health, and they can celebrate success in their, but they can't even talk about their mental health. It has to be assumed that, clearly I've got, you can go through a complete financial ruin, like Dave Ramsey, the financial guy, and he can talk openly about, well, I had millions of dollars and then suddenly I lost it all, and I was delivering pizzas and then I came back from that. So you can talk about complete ruin in that area and how you came back from that, but you can't discuss, or you can, or David Goggins can say, David Goggins is very straight about everything, but so he's probably a bad example, but just saying, I'd gotten, this horrible physical condition and all this. And so this is what I did to turn my life around physically, and on and on. But there's still this stigma attached to saying, well, I was like, everything was fine mentally, and then something happened, or a series of events, and everything just went downhill, and just, I was shattered psychologically, and it took and this is how I climbed back out of that thing. That you just don't, that's a rare thing. I mean, it's rare enough that if we hear about it, we're talking about it and celebrating it.
Right.
As opposed to it being an everyday thing where people can just talk about it. It
may not be as rare as I think it is. It may not be.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's super common. I don't see it. I don't see it happening enough. And
yeah.
It gives me some hope, because, the mentor thing scares me. To be the old man, the socializing on the internet.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, I want people to. I love homeschooling. I think homeschooling is awesome. If you enroll your kid in a sport or an activity, and your kid is going out and socializing.
Or homeschool co-op, where they meet for events and, even certain classes.
Which I don't know about that, but that sounds great too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I worry about young men in particular. I've raised 3 daughters. I love girls. Clip that. I love women, and there are unique struggles to being a female.
Sure.
And we need to address those, which I believe in many ways we are. And I will always advocate at strong love for female empowerment. But I do think we've forgotten boys.
Yeah, we may have. I certainly don't have my finger on the pulse of the nation. But I think that it may have always been, certain issues like that, I think may have always been a problem, and it's heartening to see that that's getting better. That movie stars and sports stars and on are coming out and being able to open up about those sorts of things. And I think that's at least a counter to the other problem, and frankly, going to school, and places where you're, you're forced into those socializing environments, and
which is kind of why I think schools should absolutely be a safe space for a diversity of ideas.
oh sure,
If schools go, I think schools very important, and that's why you shouldn't ban a certain type of speech, a certain type of thought. It should be open. You should allow young people to express themselves honestly without fear of reprisal.
absolutely, yeah.
But maybe I'm just idealistic. But that's not always a bad thing.
No.
You're a movie buff, or you used to be a movie buff.
To some degree, yeah.
I know. I'm assuming you're not caught up on modern movies.
I am not caught up on modern movies. I've seen. I was where I've got kids and grandkids. I'm more up on, what's happening on SpongeBob or Yo Gabba Gabba, or I know I'm naming things that are older, but than I am on the current scene. But I did finally see, like I mentioned, John Wick earlier.
Are you up on Peppa Pig?
No.
Dude, get your grandkids to start watching Peppa Pig, and I'll tell you why. If they're young enough. Not my kid, but eventually I'll kidnap this kid and steal it. Clip that, by the way. No, love this kid. Kid's great. Fucking 4-year-old kid picked up a British accent watching Peppa Pig. And uses, and I do steal the kid to go out to events when I can, because I like going to do stuff. And sometimes I love the zoo. And going to the zoo with kids is always better than going without kids.
Yeah.
For the record. Yeah, Peppa Pig. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I got caught up on I think, well, like we talked about John Wick, and I saw like a bunch of the Marvel movies, Avengers kind of stuff, and Deadpool, and
they're so much better than you would think.
Yeah, and I got caught up on all the new Bond, the Daniel Craig Bond movie, when the latest, it's not new now. I mean, it's 4 or 5 years old. When the latest Alien movie, one of the prequels, came out, I went and saw that, and went by myself at midnight, and
one was almost great but messed up some things, and the other one was almost great and messed up some things.
that's what seems to be the general consensus. But yeah, that's probably the extent of the newer movies. I haven't seen a whole lot of. And I mean, I've seen some. When I do have time, I end up watching, a documentary on Miles Davis or Jimi Hendrix or, Robert Johnson or something cool. I end up not spending it watching, regular movies very often. But I did get caught up on those because I'd heard so much about them and had a lot of people recommending them, and thought, well, okay, I'll leap in and check out some of those. Well, good. I enjoyed
There
those.
are 2 movies in the theater now that people generally recommend going to. One is Bill and Ted.
Okay.
The third Bill and Ted movie, very good. I am going to watch it again in the theater this time.
Okay.
Because last time I just sailed the 7 seas and pirated the movie. This time I'm actually going on Saturday with a date. Not sure if it's a dude or, this is why I don't like gender fluid. I'm going with the dude, right? I'm going to go watch a movie with the dude. Okay. Love the kid. Kid's fantastic. Awesome kid. One great thing about saying kid, sometimes, depending on coming from a show, anyways, dude or lady, whatever. Saturday, going to see Bill and Ted. Great movie. No need to see it in theater. You can watch it at home.
Okay.
Doesn't benefit from being in the theater. Tenet. Christopher Nolan. Very good film director. Great movie theater director. He has a new movie, Tenet, and it looks great. The plot is so complex that you would have to watch it 5 times to really get it. And even then, the plot, not that entertaining, not that interesting. It's cool. Like, think of time as being reversed, but only certain objects are going backwards in time. So think of having a gun that instead of shooting bullets, catches bullets.
Okay.
And now think of all the cool ways you can make action sequences doing that.
Okay.
With great actors doing a movie that looks amazing. With great cast, a story that's all right. It has Denzel Washington's kid. He's the star. It's got Robert Pattinson from Harry Potter.
Okay.
Played Cedric Diggory. He also did a Twilight movie or two. But yeah Robert Pattinson from Harry Potter.
Okay.
Elizabeth Debicki. I don't think you would know her. I don't think anyone knows her. She did Guardians of the Galaxy 2. She was the gold chick for like 2 scenes. She's a French actress who's half Polish, half Australian, and she's 6'3".
Oh wow.
Stunning. And when you take a 6'3" actress, put her in high heels around normal height dudes, like 5'8" to 6 foot,
sure,
it just accentuates how tall she is, which they don't make a thing of it. It just, she stands out.
Sure.
And my only complaint would be the soundtrack. Not the soundtrack, the score. Dude loves loud music, and that's great. It drives the action.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, when the music is that loud and pumping, sometimes you can't hear what people say.
Sure.
Now I get it. It doesn't matter what they say. It looks good. It's action. Think of John Wick with slightly less substance. You know, John Wick 2. Sure. It's John Wick 2.
Yeah.
Plot's not that important. But, date movie? Maybe not. Grandkid or son, age appropriate for badass action scenes? Yes. Good times. Oh, also, Chucky's daughter is in it. The actor that played Chucky, Brad Dourif. He also was in The Green Mile.
Okay.
Played the asshole prison guard. His daughter's in it. And I've never seen her in anything else. But yeah, Tenet. Got a lot of buzz. It's supposed to save the movie theaters. That's what they say.
Yeah. Well, they need to be saved, is my understanding.
You know what? No. Go to your local mom and pop theater. Buy a ticket. If the current virus or bug has you concerned and you don't want to watch a movie, I understand. No judgment. If you can, buy a ticket and don't go to the movie. But local mom and pops, yes, give them love. Buy tickets.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Big grand AMC stuff, I don't care. Fuck off. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, I just meant
AMC's owned by China.
Yeah, I just meant need
Right.
saving in terms of the that a lot of them are hurting and whatnot. But yeah. So man, we need to do this again sometime. I've got to be up in just a few hours. So,
Dude, I was just going on until you were ready to call it.
Yeah. I just realized what time. I looked down and realized what time it was. I'm like, holy shit, I got to be up in 4 hours or something. But
yeah, about 45 minutes ago, I was thinking, I should give him a heads up, but I was having fun.
That's all right. Let's do this again, though. I'm having a blast with this.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I do a lot of I've got a couple other podcasts coming up, and I do a lot of TV and radio, but it's always something to do, with what's always in my wheelhouse, and professionally speaking, and so all these, I like talking about music too, but all this is like really great because I never,
I try to force myself out there. Coming up next month, I am doing a live stream for the election.
Oh, wow.
And I have one pink-haired, gender fluid cancer survivor on board. I have a gay Trump supporter on board.
Okay.
And I have a converted from Muslim to Sikh on the fence.
Okay.
Plus, there's several normal fence sitters. I can have up to 10 people, and a lot of people are going to be coming in and out. So, November 3rd, if you want to pop in at any point, I'll probably be harassing you to get you to pop in.
Okay. That sounds like it could be fun. Man, it was great. It was great talking to you, man. This has been awesome.
It's been a blast. It's been a huge honor to have you on the channel. And I'm going to pop in and see you face to face here soon. Yeah,
well, I should be down in your neck of the woods not too terribly long from now, so I'll definitely holler at you, and we'll grab lunch or drink or something and hang out for a bit.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone that was watching, and before we bounce, you can't see the thing scrolling at the bottom. It's subscribe to this person, and let me pull up your channel one last time. But yes, again, thank you. It has been an absolute blast. Every time I share your music with people, they dig it. Thank you for finally doing a Tom Waits song, by the way.
Yeah, got some Tom on there. Been thinking about doing Time by Tom Waits also, but haven't gotten a version that I'm happy with.
Tell you what, the piano has been drinking. Could be a fun one. That could be a fun one, because if you fuck it up, you know what?
The piano's been drinking.
I was talking last night or the day before on someone's live stream. I brought up one of my favorite songs that I'm feeling is Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis.
There's so many good ones that you could just pull out. You could almost throw a dart. You could just kind of put at least the material that I'm familiar with that he's done. I'm not familiar with his entire catalog. I just remember getting Rain Dogs.
No one is. I doubt he is.
Yeah. And just being floored by Rain Dogs, and then of course I kind of expanded in both directions from there, and of the material I'm familiar with, you could almost just throw a dart at a list of titles, and it'd be hard to get a bad one. What is difficult is doing any of them justice. Most songs I I find that are I don't rehearse most of what's up there in terms of like that, like for the
Correct.
last year and a half or so. A lot of that's just me very intentionally learning a song and doing it right then. Kind of the way Linda Perry did back when she was doing her iPhone sessions.
Oh God, Linda Perry.
Yeah, and so I don't rehearse most of them, but with him, it just takes some effort because otherwise, he's got there's just so much behind everything that he does.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you're up for it at any point, you want to play Christmas card,
Okay.
I will butcher the vocals.
There we go. We might have to do that on the next.
We'll make a thing of it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to put it on your channel. It's just at some point, I would like to butcher that song on tape because, actually, you commented on my Robbie Williams drunk karaoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got no problems doing bad and sharing it with the world.
I'll just lay down the instrumental track and send it to you. You can sing right to it, right on the air. Awesome.
Oh, anyway, thank you again, sir. And sorry to keep you up so late, but have a fantastic day.
Thank you, man. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right.